Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1357 of the War News stream. And also, happy Veterans Day, and a big thanks to the service of all the veterans who watched the channel today. And also, we have very big news. We've seen that Venezuela has mobilized forces amid a U.S. aircraft carrier arriving in the area, the Gerald Ford. We've also seen that Pakistan has declared a state of war against India today. And also, Russia was struck by a major drone attack, striking refineries across Russia. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we are going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world here on Veterans Day, November 11th of 2025, also known by many of our allies as Armistice Day, where we celebrate the soldiers of the Republic and the soldiers of the armies and navies from around the world who have continued to fight for our way of life and liberty for the past 100 years, and for the United States of America, soon to be 250 years. We are going to be covering the major news that's been going on around the entirety of the world today, as we have been able to hear significant news from inside the Russian Federation that the Russian Federation is beginning to cripple from itself from within due to the major Ukrainian attacks that are continuously being conducted and the shrinking orders for oil and supplies that the Russian Federation is seeing disappearing from around the entirety of the globe. Not only that, we have also been able to hear at the exact same time that Pakistan has now declared war on India and Afghanistan after an explosion in Islamabad killed 12 citizens of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan earlier today. Meanwhile, the Republic of India is also dealing with a similar explosion that happened within New Delhi, which killed several, and the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, will be holding a security meeting tomorrow in the morning to decide the next plan of action for the Republic of India, clearly showing that the two appear to be going to war quite sooner rather than later. Outside of that, Thailand and Cambodia also appear to be on the path to war at this very moment, as Thailand has now completely rescinded the peace treaty with Cambodia after Cambodian soldiers according to the Thai claims, crossed the border, planted a landmine on a well-traveled footpath, and as Thai soldiers crossed over that area of the footpath, the landmine exploded, injuring two, with one Thai soldier resulting with the loss of his leg. As a result, Thai forces are now moving towards the border, and we've also heard, according to Thai claims, that the Cambodians have opened fire on some Thai outposts around the area of Surin and Ubon Ratchathani in the hopes of provoking a larger response by the Royal Army of Thailand. Outside of that, we have also heard other significant developments from around this region, including the People's Republic of China attempting to use the rare earth metals to disadvantage the United States Armed Forces and the armies of the Republic in their efforts to continue to support our interests around the globe. While at the same time, a large bridge within southwestern China, the Hanxi Bridge, has collapsed in a major disaster for the People's Republic of China after the bridge was only opened mere months ago. A large amount of controversy has surrounded this, as it does appear that Tofu Drive Construction is catching up to the People's Republic of China well in advance than it was supposed to. The Russian Federation and North Korea are also building a second friendship bridge between the two countries to facilitate an increased tempo of supplies to and from the two countries by rail. Outside of that and inside the Middle East, we have also heard that the Israelis are preparing for future strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran, while Iran's water reserves are visibly shrinking, according to satellite photography. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation's company Lukoil has declared force majeure within an Iraqi oil field, with all payments by the Iraqi government stopping to Lukoil effective immediately yesterday. The United States of America is also reopening an embassy inside of Damascus, while the Israelis are continuing their airstrikes against Hezbollah forces within southern Lebanon. In the Americas, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group has finally arrived into the area of the Eastern Caribbean, joining the forces under the U.S. Southcom Command under Admiral Halsey at the moment, while we are continuing to see the Venezuelans also prepare their defenses against a possible U.S. armed invasion, with Venezuela now immediately switching their tactics to a protracted guerrilla war style of warfare, although that appears to be very amiss and probably will fail immediately. We've also seen inside of Ukraine that the Ukrainian armed forces have held the line today significantly against Russian Federation forces, although the battle in Pokrovsk is still going on at a fever pitch, and the Russian Federation's armed forces are making minor advances block by block through the city over every single hour. We have seen, however, earlier today a major Russian convoy attempting to make it into Pokrovsk under the cover of fog, but that convoy was rapidly destroyed by Ukrainian armed forces later in the day, using FPV drones and a myriad of artillery fire to be able to conduct such actions. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are continuing to strike deep inside the Russian Federation, hitting the port of Tuapse, damaging the refineries at Saratov and Orsk, and also continuing to put the Russian Federation in a worsening position. I'm going to end the news summary right there, because this news summary has been going on for about 6 minutes, and we still have a lot of other major stories to cover from over the entirety of the day. I've got to say that today was an absolutely crazy day of news. As a matter of fact, I would highly encourage y'all to tell your family to gather around and sit through this news story for the course of the day, because today is a significant day like no other. Over the course of the day, just to summarize this to all of y'all, we have seen 2 wars largely start over the course of the day in India and Pakistan and Thailand and Cambodia. We are also seeing major developments inside of Ukraine and Eastern Europe, along with the nuclear positions and readiness that has been announced by the Belarusians as of the day. We have also seen that the Israelis are preparing for war with Iran, which means that war is going to be coming most likely within the next month or two, and we're also seeing that the United States is now poised to strike Venezuela. So we have 2 wars that have started today, 2 wars that are about to start, at least as of today, and another war that is about to see its end here soon, because the Russians just simply cannot keep the war going any longer inside of Eastern Europe for any longer than what we would assume to be about a year and a half from this point. But
why does it all have to happen all at once, by the way? Why can't we have like a steady, consistent trickle of news? Why do all the wars have to pop off all at this exact same time? That's wild to me. It happens like this literally every time there's a major news explosion. It's literally all at once. When it rains, it really does pour in the geopolitical cycle.
It is an absolutely crazy day. When it rains, it does pour. You're absolutely right with that. And today has no shortness of news or a shorting of news. This is a huge day, to say the least. And we are going to be making sure to go through each and every single story in as much detail as we can over the course of the night, as we always do. And so, moving us on into the first and most major story of the day, we are going to be moving on into the Russian Federation, as the Russian Federation is finding itself between a rock and a rock, or a rock and a hard place, or a hard place and a hard place, whichever way you'd like to call it. The Russian Federation is pretty much running out of time. Many of y'all will understand and know from all of the stories and news that we've covered in the past that the Russian Federation has continued to run into some significant issues with financing the war inside of Ukraine. The Russian Federation has, for one, been losing out on a lot of revenue that they prior made off of their exports to foreign countries, including the Republic of Turkey, the Republic of India, and the People's Republic of China. All three of these countries are the three largest oil importers from the Russian Federation and its crude oil that the Russian Federation produces. This is a huge part of the Russian economy and their ability to not only keep the entire country economically afloat, making enough money, but to also make sure that the Russian government has enough tax revenue to be able to finance their operations and the war in Ukraine. News has come out today that those shipments are starting to fall significantly, as Russia's seaborne crude shipments, which make up the lion's share of their oil exports, has dropped for a third week, sliding into a 2-month low, with declining volumes compounding lower prices to hit the Kremlin's war funds, according to Bloomberg. The country shipped 3.5 million barrels a day in the 4 weeks to November 9th, down by about 130,000 from the same time span to November 2nd. The value of Moscow's oil exports fell to the lowest since August on the 4-week average basis, with the gross value of Moscow's exports falling by about 80 million to 1.2 billion a week in the 28 days to November 9th. Suffice it to say, the situation is apocalyptic for the Russian Federation on the economic scale, and it does appear that the Russian Federation, due to U.S. sanctions, is seeing that its foreign oil markets, including those of friendly nations, including the Republic of India and the People's Republic of China, is beginning to quite literally disappear. And not only that, simultaneously, we have been able to hear that Chinese and Indian companies, which once again make up about 70% of all of Russia's oil exports and imports, are now changing their purchase contracts over to nations inside of the Middle East, primarily Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and also Iran, although they're supposed to not be able to buy oil from Iran because Iran is also sanctioned. Still, they find a way and generally conduct ship-to-ship transfers around the Strait of Malacca to be able to get around those sanctions issues. Still, it's becoming quite clear that the Russian Federation economically will not be able to withstand this much longer, and it does appear that we are starting to see that the Russians are taking drastic actions, or at least preparations for drastic actions, that may counter this apocalyptic doom that's about to reach the Russian economy, which is the mass mobilization of conscripts throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation. Russia claims that this is not mobilization, and I'll give you all the story that the Russians are putting out, and then I'll give you all the realistic outcome of what this is at the moment, or what we could assume it to be. But the Russians are claiming that this is not a mobilization, just routine work with reservists. But recruitment has begun in 20 regions to guard critical facilities following a decree that was signed by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, on the 4th of November. On the 4th of November, Vladimir Putin signed a decree into law inside of the Russian Federation that began year-round conscription. This is incredibly different than the normal conscription cycles that we've seen in the Russian Federation ever since the founding of the Russian Federation in 1991. Since 1991, the Russian Federation conducted conscription in 2 different series, in the spring series and the fall series. Through these 2 series every single year, they would call forward a specific number of conscripts, usually within the hundreds of thousands, to serve 1 year within the Russian Federation's armed forces. That had been the status quo since 1991 up until the 4th of November just this year. On the 4th of November, they have now changed that to an annual endless conscription cycle, meaning that the Russian Federation is now able, in theory, to conscript a far larger number, as the amount to be conscripted has now been handed over to the authority of the Ministry of Defense instead of the President of the Russian Federation. And there is a huge difference in that. In the spring and fall cycles that they usually had, Putin would call forward, say, an approximate number, 420,000, 360,000, 500,000, and so on. It was an exact number that had to be pulled from the Russian population for service. Now, with the year-round conscription going on, the authority for that conscription has been given to the Russian Ministry of Defense, meaning that the Russian Federation now has the ability to conscript a much larger number of troops rather than 600, 800,000 a year, which is what they normally do, to be able to keep the Russian Federation's armed forces running, and not only that, greatly expand the number of available troops that are inside of the Russian Federation's armed forces. More importantly, if we even take the statement at face value that the President of the Russian Federation has made about these troops being needed to guard critical facilities throughout the Russian Federation, This means that they're trying to do one of two things. Either they're trying to free up experienced troops from conducting garrison duty inside the Russian Federation to where they can be diverted elsewhere, possibly towards NATO, or these conscripts are being raised under the guise that they're going to be protecting critical facilities, but they're actually going to be the ones that are built up into new divisions or put into currently existing divisions to be directed towards NATO for a possible confrontation in the future. We already know that the Russian Federation has an incredibly aggressive posture towards the West, as we've also been able to see that their puppet, the Republic of Belarus, has continued to make provocative and dangerous actions towards the western states of NATO and the United States of America, with the statement being announced yesterday that the Oreshnik intercontinental ballistic missiles, or intermediate range ballistic missiles, depending on what you want to call them, they pretty much straddle the line in between being either an intermediate range ballistic missile or an intercontinental ballistic missile, but nevertheless, according to the Belarusian dictator Lukashenko, he has announced that Russia's Oreshnik ballistic missile system, capable of carrying nuclear warheads, will enter combat duty in Belarus in December. It was described.
Wow.
And this,
Honestly, doesn't that indicate though that technically wouldn't those be under Belarusian control at that point? Because it seems like if they're on their territory and they're mobile and they're on combat duty, it seems like if once again if Lukashenko is telling the truth, that's the huge caveat here. But if he is telling the truth, it sounds like Lukashenko has control over those weapons, which would basically be the nuclearization of Belarus, essentially.
it sounds a lot like it, but the thing is that these statements are wildly confusing because he announces that it's the Russians Oreshnik, which would make you kind of think that it might be the Russians that are under have these under their control. But then he also states that they're going to enter combat duty in Belarus in December. And what is quite weird about this is that Lukashenko, through the Belarusian government, notified the United States about the presence of tactical nuclear weapons in their country, and also that they're going to be on high alert from December onwards, which highly suggests that Belarus is in direct control of the nuclear weapons. That seems to generally be what we could get out of this at the moment, although there's still a bit of questionability up in the air as to who is directly controlling these tactical nuclear weapons, or really any nuclear weapons for that matter, that are inside of Belarus. Still, the fact that he is notifying the United States instead of the Russians gives us a decent idea to understand that the Belarusians are in control of these nuclear weapons. To explain the difference, if the Russian Federation was forward deploying their nuclear weapons into Belarus and were the ones operating the nuclear weaponry, like the Oreshnik IRBM, they would be the ones to notify the United States of America about that action. When the United States of America started to move their nuclear weapons into Germany, we notified the Russian Federation about such an action. And that was the increased number, not the currently existing ones that we already had inside of Germany, which number 2, when we brought over, I believe it was an additional 4 tactical nuclear weapons, we still notified the Russians directly. Germany didn't notify Russia that there was going to be 4 additional U.S. tactical nuclear weapons within Germany. The United States notified the Russians. So the fact that the Belarusians are notifying us instead of the Russians would lead us to heavily believe that it is actually the Belarusian armed forces that are controlling the Oreshniks and the nuclear warheads that go with them. If that is
Honestly,
the case,
though, it seems like if it is true that Lukashenko is in control of his weapons, which it sounds like he will be in control of his weapons, I would say that's a little bit different, in my personal opinion, than simply putting tactical nuclear weapons inside of, let's say, Germany, another NATO country, because there's an element of separation between the Russian border and also Germany. We have not put nuclear weapons literally right on the border with Russia, which is something that Russia is now doing inside of Belarus. So to me, I see this as a much larger escalation by Russia, because if the weapons were under Russian control, that would be one thing, but they're under control of Lukashenko, and Lukashenko could be used as, let's say, a crash dummy, essentially. If Russia wanted to nuke somebody or test a nuke or something like that, they could simply put Lukashenko up to it, which gives the Russians a little bit of plausible deniability, and they wouldn't care at all if Belarus got consequences. They would not care. So I would personally say it seems a little bit sketchy to me, like a really big deal.
well, this is an outright violation of the non-proliferation treaties if this is to be understood that the Belarusians are in control of these nuclear weapons, which is a serious concern, considering that if we take this step, the Belarusians are now controlling these weapons, This means that the Russians have now been actively involved in nuclear proliferation, which is a very serious sort of a crime, generally, as far as international treaty is concerned, to be involved in. This now means that the Belarusians are technically, if we understand this to be the case, a rogue nuclear state that is nuclear armed at this moment, and those nuclear weapons do not fall under the control of any country that is a signing member of the non-proliferation treaties. If this is the case, this is incredibly concerning. But once again, we are still a little bit up in the air as to whether or not the Belarusians are controlling these, or if the Russians are controlling these, because they always make the statements so ambiguous, it's incredibly hard to really know whether the Russians or the Belarusians are controlling them. I would still rather lean, considering that they're deliberately making this ambiguous every time they mention it, I would still lean more so towards the Belarusians directly controlling these. It's usually when someone's trying to play the political game with their wordage and make it as confusing as possible and understand what they're really meaning. Usually, we just go with the worst case scenario at that point, expect that, and if the situation's any better, then that's great, but we're already prepared for the worst case scenario. If this is the case, the United States would be wise in forward deploying our nuclear weapons in Germany to Poland as a direct response and counter to the current actions that the Republic of Belarus is conducting right now, in terms of the violations of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Still, nevertheless, a lot of people are talking about the Russian Federation and its doomsday economic window that we're seeing right now. It does not appear that the Russian Federation does have the money or the means to be able to survive this conflict much longer. And a lot of people have actually been putting out there that they believe that the Russian Federation may see a complete and total economic collapse even as early by late 2026, which is incredibly soon and only about a year away. Generally here on this channel, we estimate that it'll be about a year and a half before the Russians financially collapse, which puts it into early 2027, but some people are actually believing that it may come sooner than that. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so the big question is an economic collapse of the Russian economy still a real possibility in 2026? Because I think at this point, it's pretty much ruled out in 2025. We only have less than a month to go to end the year out, so it's probably not going to happen this year. It's probably a very small chance of it, but there is a decent chance in 2026 of a collapse inside of Russia financially. So 68% said yes, the Russian economy will collapse eventually, while 15% said it seems like a 50-50 chance, and 12% said no, Russia has external help now and it simply can't collapse. So the one thing we have seen is China is helping out Russia in a financial sense. We have seen limited proof showing that China is circumventing the sanctions on Russian oil by doing sneaky maneuvers and ship-to-ship transfers of some of that oil. So I would say personally, I've been saying this for ages actually, for a very long time, probably for at least a year, that China has been helping Russia financially under the table for a long, long time. Because technically, by the book, Russia should have already economically collapsed by now because their oil economy is struggling bigger than hell right now. Also, they're having bank runs. They've had those in the past and they're going to have those again probably very soon. So technically, they should have already suffered some type of collapse, but yet at the same time, they are still treading water somehow. So in my opinion, the only logical answer is they are getting help from somebody, and really the only country that is equipped to help out is China. So I think personally it's a 50-50 chance, but because of the Chinese lifeline, the possibility is sort of getting a little bit lower in my personal opinion. So I'm actually with the 14%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 68%. I actually think that there is an inevitable collapse that will be coming to the Russian economy, because while it does appear that the Russians have survived far longer than they ever should have at this point economically, there also is the fact that a Russian financial collapse at the magnitude that we're looking at right now is most likely going to be so substantial and large, there really will be no way for the Chinese to permanently bail out the Russians and bankroll their operations indefinitely to stop this inevitable collapse. We've gone through it before here on the channel, the amount of monetary figures involved in a potential Russian Federation collapse, particularly just dealing with a collapse of their oil and petroleum industries, and that would be a collapse in the hundreds of billions of dollars. The People's Republic of China, while a fairly wealthy country, it still only has half of the GDP value of the United States of America. The United States currently has a GDP of around $29 trillion. The People's Republic of China has a GDP around $18 trillion, which is roughly a little bit over half. With that in mind, China does not have the money to go and throw a $600 billion bailout to the Russian Federation, and then not only that, bankroll them monthly, indefinitely afterwards with the current economic and political situation that we're seeing inside of Russia. It would just be infeasible. The Chinese could not afford such an action. It would start to rake up a massive amount of national debt for the People's Republic of China, and there really would never be a return on investment. It's not supporting any sort of infrastructure. It's not really supporting anything that would return a tax revenue for the People's Republic of China to where they could even pay off the interest from the loans that they would be taking to keep bankrolling the Russian Federation. So I would generally be with a large majority of people, the 67%, it will be a matter of time when the Russian Federation collapses. It's not a matter of if, it is really a matter of when at this point, even with Chinese support helping to keep the Russian Federation afloat, at least for now. And the Ukrainian attacks that we've seen over the course of the day inside of the Russian Federation would also lead us to believe that there really is no way for the Chinese to bankroll the Russians long enough into the future to keep them going indefinitely, because the Ukrainians are inflicting such a large amount of damage to key Russian facilities. There really is no way that the Russians or the Chinese could really avoid that situation or issue at its head. And moving us on into that large piece of news over the course of the day, the port of Tuapse was hit again. 48 hours ago, another large attack was conducted on the port of Tuapse, and it was a very significant one. It was so significant, it was even causing massive sinkholes and craters within the beaches of the port of Tuapse, which I didn't even know, to be entirely honest with y'all, that sand could ever create fissures below the surface that could turn into sinkholes. I've never seen this until now. One thing that's even crazier is that this is believed to be the first attack that has ever been conducted against the Russian Federation that may have involved the Flamingo cruise missile, which is a new cruise missile that has been designed, at least by the state of Ukraine, and it's been put into production in limited numbers. Let me see if I can go and show you all a picture here of here's the Flamingo, right there in testing. This missile is quite large. It has about twice the range of the Tomahawk and about twice the warhead capacity. It's incredibly large, and it does appear that there was a video that came out from the port of Tuapse of the oil loading platform being hit that heavily leans into the idea that a Flamingo may have been used. But let me show you all that clip, and I'll let y'all make up your minds as to whether or not this was a Flamingo cruise missile or some other form of ordnance that the Ukrainians had at their disposal. Here's the clip.
Holy cow. Man, I saw this clip earlier today when I was watching this right here. Some people were speculating it was a 1-ton warhead on that thing. Honestly, they either hit an ammo cache or something, or that was a Flamingo. I've never seen an explosion that large, pretty much in any footage we've seen in a long time.
I have not seen an explosion like this in a minute. This one was huge. And
I mean, look at that. It was the literally the brightness of that, like even on a screen, was wild. Like that was a truly huge explosion.
Let's watch it again. I mean, that is a hell of an explosion. I think the only other weapon that the Ukrainians could have that could create this kind of explosion would be one of the larger Guerrilla naval drones that is at their disposal, which has made similar explosions like this possible, including on the Crimean Bridge. Still, we did not hear, at least over the attack on the port of Tuapse, of any naval drones penetrating the port and making its way to the oil loading platform to detonate on it. So this would lead us to more so believe that this bomb was delivered in an airborne fashion instead of a seaborne fashion. Which means, at that point, the only thing that could have hit this oil loading platform would have had to have been something, considering that, once again, we really didn't see anything on film here preceding the explosion, at least any moving vehicle. So it had to have been moving quite quickly within the night sky for us to not really pick it up on the camera. This leads me to believe this was the first time the Flamingo cruise missile has ever been used in combat before, which is going to be quite crazy, at least for the Russians. This thing can deliver a 2,000-pound warhead, I believe about 1,700 miles into Russia. Basically, nothing is out of range at this point for the Ukrainians if this was the first successful use of the Flamingo cruise missile. Let me put that into perspective, at least on the map physically for everyone. If the Ukrainians fired this missile from eastern Ukraine near to Sumy, and they fired at 1,700 miles into Russia, they would be able to reach all the way out past the city of Omsk, which is in Asia. That is how far the Ukrainians could reach with a Flamingo cruise missile. And these missiles are not lightly armed like other Ukrainian drones that have had 50 and 100-pound explosives on board. This missile carries a 2,000-pound, 1-ton warhead. It's incredibly large, and the amount of damage that it can cause is unbounding compared to what we've seen so far conducted by the Ukrainians. So if this was the first successful use of the Flamingo, and this was its debut into actual field service, the Russian Federation is going to be dealing with a lot worse issues if the Ukrainians are able to field these en masse. And speaking of which, the Russians are already dealing with major issues with the current Ukrainian drones as they exist right now. The city of Saratov, another major hit was conducted to the refinery on the southern end of the city. The orange glow permeated the sky around the area and was seen all the way up until the morning. The fire was never extinguished from what we've been told so far, and the Russians are continuing to have to wait for the fire to burn down enough for firefighting crews to even approach the blaze and to try and put it out so repairs can eventually be attempted on the heavily hit and heavily damaged refinery that has been hit multiple times over just the past few months alone. Moving even further on and into the Russian Federation, into the city of Orsk, we have also been able to see the Ukrainians landed a second major hit on the Orsk refinery in these clips as well. You see
this was a crazy one right here, because this was a 1,400 kilometer strike right here. This was an extremely long strike, and there was actually videos showing the drone flying in. It was a pretty relatively normal looking Ukrainian drone that flew in and hit this thing, but it hit literally smack dab in the middle of it. It was a very precise hit for it to be a 1,400 kilometer flight.
And 1,400 kilometers, folks, is pretty much straddling the border between the continents of Europe and Asia. This is right at the foothills of the western Ural mountain range. You can actually see the Ural mountains right up here. There's where they are. And so this is literally straddling the border between Europe and Asia, hitting a refinery inside of Orsk. Also, I do believe that we actually have the clip of the attack. Here it is, actually, of the drones that hit the Orsk refinery.
Throttling up, throttling down. I was saying this earlier. Can you imagine the fuel efficiency of this drone right here for this thing to go 1,400 kilometers on a single tank? I mean, that's pretty solid from a fuel standpoint.
It really is. You know what's even crazier? That's a standard Liudi airframe, at least, which has been used endlessly. I remember when Liudis were just breaking about 400 miles in range, and then they started to hit about 600 miles, and then about 800 miles. Now we're seeing them go about 1,400 kilometers into the Russian Federation. They're practically reaching Asia at this point, and it's suggesting to us that the Ukrainians are endlessly adapting, upgrading, and innovating the Liudi platform into from a short-range platform into an extreme long-range platform. It doesn't have a huge warhead on board. It's about 100 to 150 pounds, but the range makes up for the lack of ordnance. And there it goes on towards the Orsk refinery.
No air defense either. Like, notice that. You remember how Putin was saying he was going to reinforce the oil refineries? Well, you know, it's not here. Like, we never heard any type of air defense before it struck. This one here was completely undefended. I think Saratov, we saw spotlights shining up from the location of Saratov, which was the other refinery that was hit last night, and it appeared to be there was some small arms fire. But here in Orsk, I don't think there was any air defense.
From what I could tell, there wasn't any at all. But you know something, Matthew? This is a great close-up right here that we just paused on, and there are a couple of interesting features about this Liudi that is not common to most other Liudis. So I guess we could classify this one as the long-range variant of the Liudi, because let's look at a couple of the things that have changed on this Liudi compared to prior ones that we've seen in other attacks. For one, all of the landing gear is gone. There is no landing gear on this Liudi. The wings are a good bit thinner, which appears to be a weight-saving measure, as well as the V-shaped vertical stabilizer on the back of the aircraft. That also appears to have been shaved down in size a good bit as well. And with that, we can only assume that the airframe itself has also been shaved down as much as they possibly can without compromising its airworthiness. So it looks like a huge amount of weight-saving measures were made on this version of the Liudi to eke out this kind of range, about 870 miles or 1,400 kilometers. Huge shout out, by the way, to Miguel Morales, who put that in the chat right there. That was a huge help. But there appears to be a huge amount of innovations that are being made, at least in making these as lightweight as possible, and also probably loading them up with as much fuel as they possibly can as well to extend the range of these great distances.
Yeah, probably so, honestly. And they must have like had some advancement in the actual explosive technology in the drone because one of the places you try to save weight is the actual payload of ordnance itself. So I wonder if they're using a different type of explosive in this drone because they had to probably save weight on that front because that's one of the heaviest parts is the actual payload itself.
And that's actually an interesting idea. There are multiple different kinds of explosives that could have been used to save weight. And also, by the way, folks, here's another clip showing the damage from that singular drone that happened at the Orsk refinery, which was quite a significant hit.
Yeah, honestly, I wonder what they were using. We probably will never know because I'm sure that's highly guarded, but I wonder what they were using for the explosive.
It's probably at least explosive advances have been made over the centuries. Like in World War II, there was, I think, 9 different forms of explosive that could have been used for explosive filler. And I would have to assume that it's some sort of a modernization or an improvement on an already existing explosive to make it a little bit more lightweight, but pack the same punch, I would assume at least. But moving on out of that, and on up and into the area of the Russian Federation in general, we also got to see something that was quite rare today. We got to see a MiG-31K, for the first time ever on film, fire a Kinzhal hypersonic missile at Ukraine. And this was very interesting because we actually, as a matter of fact, have never seen the launching process of a Kinzhal ever happen on film before. But here is the clip. We can see the MiG-31K as a specialized version of the MiG-31 that is specifically designed to be able to carry the Kinzhal. We can see the Kinzhal slung underneath the aircraft. We can now see the cockpit. We can see the launch occur. The MiG rolls over, and we can see the Kinzhal's motor activate underneath the aircraft several hundred feet below, and then it begins its journey on towards Ukrainian airspace. And here's the clip again from another angle from a nearby aircraft.
The war crime weapon right there, the one of Russia's favorite for war crimes.
I'll be honest with y'all, this thing has a launch process that is wildly similar to that of a AIM-54 Phoenix from an F-14, which is a little bit interesting to point out. And let me go show you all this. The AIM-54 Phoenix. This was one of our first, I believe it's an active radar homing missile that was ever used within the U.S. arsenal, but this is it right here. This thing was quite chunky and has been replaced completely by the AIM-120. But these things had quite an early service history and were well known, at least within the U.S. Navy, as the F-14 Tomcat was generally one of the only aircraft that could handle and operate the AIM-54. Now, what's interesting about that is that if you look at a Kinzhal, let me go show you all the Kinzhal here. It kind of looks a little bit similar, at least in body shape. The Kinzhal is larger, but the AIM-54 is generally almost appears to be a smaller version of the Kinzhal hypersonic. So I would actually be honest with y'all, I think someone in Russia took an inspiration or note from how an AIM-54 Phoenix is launched and pretty much copied that directly onto the Kinzhal hypersonic missile.
Yeah, maybe so. It could be. I wouldn't be shocked if they copied it for sure. That's a typical playbook thing that Russia would do, along with China too.
And let me go see if I can pull up an AIM-54 firing here really quickly. To show, here you go. Here's a picture of it at least to give you all an idea of what it roughly looks like. You can actually see that when an AIM-54 is fired, it drops a couple of, well, really only about 2 dozen or 3 dozen feet below the F-14, and then the solid motor activates, and then it starts to travel towards its target. Generally guided by the radar of the aircraft, at least in the earlier part of its flight, but once the AIM-54 makes it in a certain amount of flight time in seconds, it enters what's called the bulldog mode, which is where the AIM-54's onboard radar activates, and then it will target and destroy anything, generally, that pops up within its radar scope when the radar turns on. So generally, it looks almost identical. I mean, the launching process of the two was very similar, although pretty much firing any missile is somewhat similar, but this seemed to be incredibly similar, also considering that the shapes of the missiles themselves are generally identical rather than the scale of the missile. But moving on from that and on out of that rare footage that we ever got of an Iskander firing, or more so a Kenzel, Iskander and Kenzel is basically the same thing, but moving on out of that, it is time for us to get on into the other major news that we have been able to hear from around the whole world, the world at large, and there was an insane amount of news, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for the night. But before we move on into all of that, I do want to make sure that we talk to y'all about another major story that happened overnight, at least, in between the Russian Federation and the European Union. Here, near to the port, the Ukrainian port of Renai and the Romanian port or town of Grindu, a significant event has once again happened. Another Russian drone has struck Romania once again across the Danube. From what we know, it was incredibly close to the village of Grindu, and Romanian authorities have cordoned off the area and are conducting a complete investigation. From what we understand, the Russian drone possibly was aiming for the port of Renai, or they may have been aiming directly for Romania to conduct another low-level coercion effort. It's unclear which one it was. Still, the Russian Federation has conducted another attack, by technicality, on NATO soil within the Republic of Romania. And this has led a lot of people to talk about this incident and ongoing development. And, of course, we need to know what people are thinking about this. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so as we can see on the map right here, Russia was launching a major drone attack near the border of Ukraine and Romania, near the port of Renai, which is pretty much a typical target for Russia. There's nothing unusual about that, but we did see that apparently one of those drones crashed onto Romanian territory yet again. We're not told it actually caused any damage inside of Romania, but once again, it did land on NATO territory again last night for probably the 7th or 8th time in the last year or so. So was it intentional? And 52% of the audience said yes, it was probably intentional, while 26% said no, it was likely accidental, and 15% said we need more info first. And this one here is a bit tricky because Russia has been doing this so many times over that it seems like it couldn't be accidental at this point. But at the same time, though, Russia is extremely incompetent and their targeting is probably not the best. So to expect perfection from Russian targeting, that would be a little off base. But at the same time, though, considering this is so close to the NATO border, you would think that Russia would pay extra attention to it, not to send one over there into Romania. So I'm a bit 50-50 on this. I'm kind of with the 14%. It seems to me like Russia could be doing it to strike fear into NATO, just as a little routine chaos act, or maybe it could be accidental. It's just a little bit tricky on this one. But just for the fact it's happened so many times, I would call it intentional by default, just because it's happened so many times in a row. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that it's definitely intentional. The Russian Federation trying to conduct an attack on a port in Ukraine that is sitting on a river that is directly across from a NATO country, that is a deliberate act of recklessness and negligence in its own right. No country on the planet, historically, very rarely, unless if they were trying to provoke or instigate a larger conflict with the victim nation, in this instance Romania, would ever conduct an attack on a border city that is that close to another country. Rarely does that ever happen. Hell, as a matter of fact, through most times in history, especially in the modern era, most people, when they thought a war was coming, they would go and move to a border town that's bordering another country that generally would be considered neutral, because they would understand, or at least know, that another country, for example, let's say Germany and France go to war in the Second World War, the French are never going to bomb a German town that's right on the Swiss border, because they're going to be scared of bombing the Swiss, and that might get the Swiss involved in the conflict and add a whole other headache to the scenario. That's been understood throughout the whole of history. So the Russians going, let's attack the port of Renai, in itself is such a negligent and blatantly hostile action towards NATO that when this drone veers across the river, as they would, and slams into Romania, it may as well be considered a completely intentional attack. Because who in the hell in their right mind commanding a military would go, yes, we want to ensure that this war remains only in between us and Ukraine, and we don't want NATO involved because NATO would curb stomp us and steamroll us, so let's attack port cities that are directly along the border of a NATO state and hope that none of our bombs or drones just end up veering across the border and go flying into a NATO territory and might instigate a larger war with NATO against the Russian Federation. That would be absolutely stupid. This clearly is an intentional action by the Russian Federation. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And so with that,
That was an abrupt end to that right there. I thought you were wrapping that one up.
man, I was wrapping that thing up, and I was leaving a little bit of an empty moment because I thought you were going to add in something, and then you didn't. I was like, okay, well, with that, it's time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have for the night. We're going to be moving generally out of Europe for a moment, and we're going to be moving on over into the Americas. Everyone loves the Americas, and everyone always loves the endless stories and adventures of the United States and our hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow in the Eastern Caribbean. And we're, of course, returning to the adventures of Captain Crack Sparrow within the Eastern Caribbean today, as Captain Crack Sparrow is now going to be going up against probably one of their largest opponents within the region at this point, as we have been able to confirm that the USS Gerald R. Ford and its carrier strike group has arrived today within the area of the Eastern Caribbean. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the most advanced of its class. Well, it's the only one of its class at the moment, and it's the most advanced aircraft carrier within the U.S. Navy at this moment, and it and its carrier strike group, including several Arleigh Burkes, has just arrived within the Eastern Caribbean to join U.S. Southcom Command and our ongoing military buildups against the Republic of Venezuela. The ongoing buildups have been somewhat significant, and it was just announced earlier today that more troops have been deployed by the United States into Panama just hours before the Gerald R. Ford arrived within the area. The United States is basically cornering the Venezuelans, is the best way to put it in military senses, because I'm sorry I had to do that, folks. I was battling not to do that for the past few minutes, but the situation is quite strenuous, at least for the Venezuelans. The United States has practically cornered them. And if I was to show you one of the recent maps or publications that's been put out by Ian Ellis on Twitter, which is showing the U.S. force disposition within the area, it is unfathomable. On top of that, along with the Gerald R. Ford being there, it is truly an astounding presence. We have enough Tomahawk cruise missiles in the U.S. Navy's firepower and arsenal alone to be able to lay waste to most of Venezuela's military facilities, air bases, and critical infrastructure at this moment right now, not even including the 60 or so multi-role aircraft that are currently on board the USS Gerald R. Ford and are ready to conduct combat operations at this moment, along with VMF 223, which is in Puerto Rico, and multiple other groups, including the Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group, and all of the additional U.S. land forces that we generally don't know the exact number of that are scattered around the entirety of the Caribbean, from Puerto Rico to Panama to Trinidad and Tobago. The Venezuelans are getting incredibly concerned about this ongoing development, and we have seen that Venezuela has continued to posture quite impressively, I will say, against the United States of America. We have been able to hear that the Venezuelans have deployed 200,000 troops to confront the threats from the United States.
Oh, 200,000 troops. Like we have to be shaking in our boots from that one. Honestly, does anybody really believe that they've deployed 200,000 troops? And also, even if they did have 200,000 troops, which I'm certainly a little bit doubtful about, that seems like a very large deployment for a country like Venezuela. They're probably so ill-equipped, it's basically pointless. And on top of that, these guys aren't even trained that well. Like, these guys aren't even professional soldiers. They're really ragtag, like, militia forces, basically.
So the active personnel of the armed forces of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces of Venezuela is 109,000 as of 2020, which is the last number that they have on Wikipedia. They also had about 250,000 paramilitary forces in reserve. So I don't know where in the world they're getting the 200,000 from, unless they're saying that they've activated the paramilitary forces, which is basically the guerrillas, is the best way to put it. I don't know where they're getting the 200,000 from. And I also want to point out to y'all that as of the last the annual military budget of Venezuela's publications in 2017, they had an annual budget for the whole military of $741 million, which is a lunch in the U.S. military budget-wise. So I don't really think, to be entirely honest with all of y'all, they're going to be doing quite well. They don't really put a lot of money into the military. I mean, who in the world has ever heard of a military being funded, the whole military, mind you, with $741 million over the course of an entire year? I mean, if the U.S. ever got down to that kind of military spending, we wouldn't even exist. That would be unreal. And on top of that, 200,000 guys, and 200,000 guys from where? And how well trained are they? And how well equipped are they? Well, some of y'all are wondering, and I got the answers for y'all. We got a couple of clips out of Venezuela today. Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready to see what in the world the Venezuelan military actually looks like? Are y'all ready to see what the forces are that they have actually deployed? on film.
I bet their forces are cracked. I bet they're cracked.
Man, they are cracked, but
Ow.
not in a good way. Like they not in a good way at all. Here is the clip, the first one that we have.
Oh,
We got some others. We got others. So hold your horses, man. We got to get to the others first. But we've got to, folks, we've got to give the Venezuelan military some respect. Put some respect on their name. These guys, they look serious. I mean, look at him. This guy right here. This guy looks like he will eat your empanada, just like Maduro. This guy looks like he doesn't even want to be here on the left. And this lady over here on the right, she doesn't, I don't even know what she's doing here. She doesn't look like she knows why she's here either.
she's wearing those glasses like the insurance adjuster off The Incredibles.
Man.
Isn't it just the same ones? I've never seen like real frames that are that squared off like that. That's kind of impressive just from a style standpoint, really.
All right, folks. So all jokes aside, let's listen to Joey Diaz here tell us what the Venezuelan military is doing. So let's give a listen.
Chávez vive, mi comandante jefe.
Commander Jefe. No way! Like, oh my god! Oh my god! Man, and also I like how they put in the U.S. police siren in the background, which plays through the whole clip, mind you. I got to tell you all that up front, which they just added in because they thought it was cool. It's not actually there. They just added it in. So here's the rest of the clip.
Las 00:05 horas del día 11.
Oh my god!
Oh wow!
They're handing the rifles through a prison grate from the armory.
That's impressive right there. I bet they have 200,000 guns behind that door for all 200,000 soldiers. You know, that looks like an armory that would hold that many guns, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Also, on top of that, I gotta give a huge shout out to the cameraman filming in an area that strictly prohibits film and photography. As you can see here on that giant cross, it says no videos, no cameras, and no smartphones. And here we are watching the video of this. This is truly incredible.
De noviembre del año 2020.
Also, I'd like to point out that everyone once again does not have a ballistic helmet, and also their vests look like they may not have actual bulletproof plates inside of them. It looks like they may just be fabric vests to carry magazines. So once again, these guys are completely unequipped.
25. Nos encontramos desde la zona operativa de defensa y
Also, what the hell is this armory?
I don't even know, man. And also, by the way, it's like, what prevents someone from just like putting on some like LARPer tactical gear or something and jumping in this line and getting a free AK?
Man, you're about to whip a Bugs Bunny out on him, man. You're gonna dress up and go, yeah, boss, another one here. You know, get like a 50 AKs. Oh my god, man,
Amazonas.
it's ridiculous.
Preparados y atentos. Luego de recibir
I love how they just keep handing the weapons out to everyone from the prison bar grates at the opening of every armory. Every single time.
la orden preparatoria, damos inicio al
Oh, wow, they're
despliegue
actually
de
getting
las
ammunition.
acciones
Now, what are
defensivas.
the odds that ammunition's actually in that box? Like, I'm putting 50-50 odds on that. I think there might be some rocks in those boxes.
Oh my god, is that a knee mortar? Is that like a...
I think. Oh, this is the explosivos.
Oh my goodness! No way!
Defensivas territoriales en el marco
Oh, and they're
del
loading them
plan
into the back of the pickups.
Independencia 200. Resistencia.
Okay, so wait a minute, they got the rifles issued to them, so then they run across the parking lot and they just hand them over to someone else, and then they're completely out of their control again. What the hell is the point of that?
I'm getting Chechen Akhmat vibes off of this. You know how they do like the whole movie thing, like the little films to make it look like they're really on the ball? It just seems extremely staged right here, like very staged.
Oh, it's wildly staged. I mean, this is their version of a Hollywood movie production. That's why they got the endless siren sound effect playing over the whole clip, like it's Payday 3 and we're about to rob a bank. The whole thing is set up for the cameras, but it is a joke still. Like they are so bad at soldiering. They can't even soldier in front of the camera somewhat properly. Like, it's just that bad. But let's get back to the clip. Let's see what else they got in store for us.
Activa y ofensiva permanente para alcanzar el punto óptimo.
Did you hear Commander Jefe? He just said, this is cancer, and I would have to agree with him. Like, it's pretty bad. Like, this is rough.
De preparación del Estado.
Oh, and now they all go running out from the neon green lit building, which is very tactical,
La
of course.
amenaza contra el desgaste sistemático y la campaña aérea.
Are they running out of the chapel?
Wow. They're running through the sacred halls, man. They're running straight out of the sacred church into battle.
Bro, why are they running through a chapel? What sense does this make? Why are they
Nos
doing it?
desplegamos
Here they
para
come.
ejercitarnos y cohesionarnos. A
Also,
fin de
they're decorated for
aumentar
Christmas, man. They are ready for battle. They got the little icicles hanging off the ceiling. I mean, look at this. They put more actual effort into their Christmas decorations than preparing for war, I think.
Man, honestly, I think they did. You know, Matthew, I just realized, man, why they were running out of the chapel.
They committed some sins and they had to get out quick.
Nah, man, they were back there praying, please don't let the Americans go wipe the floor. Please don't let them in. And they
nos
ran out.
desplegamos para ejercitarnos y cohesionarnos.
Oh, man, they finally gave them magazines for once. I gotta say, that's a big step up. Everyone here has got an
A fin de
AK-74,
aumentar
too, interestingly.
nuestro poder de combate. Estamos ejecutando la dispersión
Oh,
y
my
Rolling out.
desconcentración
Look
de los
at them. They're
medios
rolling out that old Soviet crap.
Dude, they're rolling out in an old Ural, but they got the comfort cab, dude. They got the back row seats in the cab. I've never seen that.
That's the crew cab, actually, right there. That's the that's the luxury model.
Man, this is a high-end model. They might not spend any on their military every year, but when they do, they're getting that crew cab. I
y
mean, that's something.
equipamiento del
Oh, and a heavy mortar.
sistema
They got a heavy
defensivo
mortar.
territorial de la SODI Amazonas.
That police
a fin
siren's
de
about to drive me crazy.
evacuarlos a los diferentes
Oh, finally, there's an actual police light-equipped car.
puntos estratégicos, protegido con el objeto de preservar la
Now they drive
seguridad
through the slums
y
of
evitar
Caracas.
ataques de la
I'm gonna have to mute the audio here, folks. I can't stand the siren anymore. Riding in the back of the pickups. Oh, look, they got the riot gear out because obviously the U.S. soldiers are going to come over and have a protest in the middle of the Capitol. That makes sense. Or wait a minute, why in the world would they have the riot gear on? Are they scared that the population's going to rise up against the government if the U.S. shows up? Because that's the only thing they can be used for. That makes no sense otherwise.
These guys right here are going to get bagged like Thanksgiving turkey. Like if a war actually breaks out, these guys right here are finished. Like I can understand now why they're saying that they would only last about 2 days. I'm not sure if they're going to last 2 days at this point. This is pretty rough.
Dude, is that a midget?
Well, I mean,
Look how tall he
it's
is.
an inclusive military. Okay, it's inclusive.
Look, everyone here is like 5'8" at least, maybe 5'10", and then right here, like 4'6". I don't even know how tall that person is. Are they even allowed in the military? I'm actually curious about that because in America there's a height restriction. You have to be a certain height tall to be able to join the military. I have a lot of, that riot shield's as tall as they are. Like how
He's a Cav Scout. He's a Cav Scout. Give him a break. He's sent out to do the recon. Oh, look, it's Hefe. He's back again.
Man, Commander Hefe was giving that camera the side eye for a second, and no wonder they call him Hefe. I mean, look at that double chin.
He was waiting for the action.
Man, move out, guys, and midget.
Damn.
Oh,
This is some rough stuff right here, honestly. Oh, look, here comes the police and the riot gear again.
oh my god, and they whipped. Oh my god, that ain't a good look, I'll tell y'all. But anyways, that's our first clip of the Venezuelan military. Are you ready to see the second clip? Well, actually, hold up. This isn't a clip. This must be the fourth one. Ah, yes, I think it is that one. But Venezuela is preparing a guerrilla-style defense plan in case of a U.S. attack, acknowledging its forces are under-equipped and poorly paid, which are the two things you definitely don't want to hear when you're about to get invaded, possibly, is that your military is under-equipped and poorly paid. The strategy: scatter small units nationwide, sabotage invading troops, and create chaos in the capital specifically. Morale and equipment remain major concerns because of the lack of pay and the lack of equipment. So, I would have to be honest with y'all, I think they already know that they're screwed, because spreading everyone out across the country in small groups and pretty much believing in like this Wolverine concept, it's not going to happen. A lot of these guys don't even get paid enough to fight and die for their country, much less when the government literally ceases to exist and their ability to get paid ceases to exist. They're not going to continue to fight against the United States. There's no point at all at that point to even do that. Still, Maduro did order the mobilization today, starting at 4 p.m. by land, sea, and air. So, it does appear the Venezuelans are getting ready for what's ever coming around the corner, and Commander Jefe will be there to defend the great Republic of Venezuela. But a lot of people have been talking about the Venezuelans preparing their guerrilla-style warfare plans against the United States. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So, all jokes aside, this is Venezuela's plan right here. Venezuela is preparing a guerrilla style defense plan against a possible U.S. invasion. That is their real plan that they're going to implement. It's a guerrilla style warfare. And what are your thoughts? 58% said that's Venezuela's only real option for defense, while 31% said Venezuela has no real options to defend. They're pretty much screwed. And 5% said that will probably actually work well for them, the guerrilla style warfare. So, what's been being said in the background? We've gotten a reporting saying that anonymous officials in the Venezuelan government is acknowledging they would only last probably less than 2 days in total against the combined U.S. military if they decided to invade. It would be a very quick thing. But Venezuela's plan is they were going to basically retreat out of the cities, like we had mentioned before, like they were probably going to do, and they're going to try to launch guerrilla-style attacks on the U.S. military invasion force when they eventually take the cities. So Venezuela is not expecting to actually protect their cities. That's something they're not even trying to do, essentially. They're pretty much just going to retreat and also start fighting a prolonged war against the occupiers, which would then be the United States, if an invasion were to occur. So honestly, that is Venezuela's only real option. They have no hope in hell with that army right there of holding any cities. They would get wiped basically with the floor if the U.S. military showed up and actually launched a full-scale invasion. They would be royally screwed, and they even acknowledge that themselves, and they know that. So they're studying Vietnam-era tactics that the Viet Cong used against the United States, and they're going to try to implement something very similar to that using this ragtag group of forces. So will it work? I don't know. Like with these forces they've got, they're so poorly trained. I'm not sure if they're capable of doing pretty much anything at this point. They might run off or just abandon the place if it got really, really hairy. So it basically depends on how loyal they are to Maduro at that point. So Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, they have no options to defend. I'm with the 31%. There's no way in hell that this is ever going to work. And let me explain why. Because it sounds like it would work on paper until we think about the practical realities of being one of these guys that's going to be in the Venezuelan military. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of Commander Jefe. So Commander Jefe, one, the food isn't coming in like it used to because the U.S. is occupying the cities, which is where most of the food's going to be. And I know in the farms they grow the food, but the food ain't edible at the farms. It usually gets processed elsewhere into something that's actually edible. And Commander Jefe loves his empanadas, and empanadas are not going to be existing for him as a guerrilla warrior. Secondly, another thing is that these guys are hardly getting paid. And y'all know what people say when they hardly get paid and their job is getting a little bit too stupid for them? They say, I don't get paid enough for this, and they give up. That's what they do. What do you think the guys in the Venezuelan military are going to do? When the U.S. lands on the coast, they're going to say, I don't get paid enough for this, and they're going to give up right then and there. I mean, they're not even getting paid anyways. And then on top of that, if the major cities fall, guess what falls with that? The pay offices and the Ministry of Defense of Venezuela. So there's not even a Ministry of Defense or a pay office to pay these guys anymore. So at that point, they're fighting as volunteers for free. No one's going to do that. I mean, nobody on the planet's going to do that. Like, on top of that, if they think morale is an issue because of the lack of pay, I mean, they're not going to gain any morale, especially when they're now working for free. They're going to run. These guys are going to book it, and they're going to be in the hills, literally not fighting, giving up. That's how it's going to work. They have no option at this point, and spreading everyone out across the country, that just doesn't work. Venezuela does not have a group like the Fedayeen. And the Fedayeen was the only group in Iraq that gave any real resistance because they were insane fanatics. Everyone else, from the Republican Guard down in Iraq, gave up. Even in the U.S. invasion in 2003. The only group that ever gave any resistance was the Fedayeen, which was Saddam Hussein's personal bodyguard and the most elite unit in the Iraqi army. It was basically their special forces. And they were the ones who went and raided the armories that were unguarded by the U.S. or anyone else in Iraq, and then continued the resistance on through the years until we eventually withdrew from 2011 after the Iraqi government was stabilized. Venezuela does not have a unit like that. So every single unit in the Venezuelan armed forces is going to be like the Republican Guard and everything below them. They're going to give up instantly. They're not going to even fight. They would probably think that having the United States occupy the country could only mean better things for Venezuela rather than what the current government's been able to give them. A lot of people in Venezuela, you got to remember, folks, remembered back when it was a decent country that had a good functioning economy, not less than 15 years ago. So why in the world would any of them, knowing that there could be better, fight for this government that has given them nothing but the worst conditions possible? No one's going to do that. I would be honest with y'all. I'm not going to be a Russian and say that we're going to win this thing in 3 days. It probably would take about a month or two, because the United States is methodical and we work through things and clear out the place and make sure that it's secure. But at the same time, I do not think that there's going to be any real resistance that's given by the Venezuelan government or the armed forces of Venezuela if a U.S. Ground invasion actually began at this point.
But to be, to be the devil's advocate, though, I will say this: it's not confidence inspiring whatsoever to see the state of the Venezuelan forces. They look very, very ragtag. I think pretty much everybody can agree on that. But at the same time, though, it doesn't take a whole lot of forces to launch a guerrilla warfare campaign, because here's the catch: if the U.S. invades and the U.S. tries to take, for example, Caracas or other large cities inside of Venezuela, they're going to have to hold them. They can't just simply take it and then leave, or otherwise the forces are going to come right back and retake the city, because, of course, the U.S. will have withdrawn at that point. So the U.S. is going to have to hold it, and that's where the problem comes into play with a guerrilla warfare campaign, because like we saw in Vietnam, and I'm seeing some people say this isn't like Vietnam, there are some similarities. The problem is, though, Maduro's trying to use old tactics in a modern day setting, which won't work, but it is similar, at least in the environment, to Vietnam. So if the U.S. tries to keep the cities, and these forces that are out in the perimeters of the city and also in the jungles come out and keep attacking over and over and over, that is going to bog the U.S. down for a very long time if those attacks are persistent over the course of years. We will be in a very similar quagmire that we've been in other countries, where we thought we were going to win a war quickly, but yet at the same time, we sort of underestimated the determination of the forces, even if they are ragtag, just because of the tactics they're using. So to me, I still say I personally would not invade Venezuela just for that reason alone, and that risk. That risk to me is too high to get us bogged down there for years. And I don't see the benefit to get us bogged down there for years either. So it's possible maybe they'll give up, but I wouldn't hedge a bet on it.
I would have to be honest. I wouldn't say that a ground invasion in Venezuela is a good idea. At the same time, though, if we did conduct one, it probably would end up going a lot more smoothly than we would believe. The problem is, though, and I've talked about this before about a month ago here on the channel, is that we need to have a clear exit strategy before we even go into Venezuela. We need to have a clear exit strategy. The exit strategy, and the only one that will work, is that we have to set up a pro-U.S. government within the country and provide it with enough money and equipment that they will be able to hold their own once we leave. Within a couple, maybe a half year or a couple of years' time, we will slowly begin to withdraw after we successfully pretty much take over the country, set up an interim government, which will become the permanent government, and then we leave, and then they take care of the rest of the business. That's what generally we would have to do. We cannot be there forever. There are loads of other bigger fish to fry, even right now, that are going on in the world. But if for some reason, because I have to say this, folks, I'm not in the White House. None of y'all are either. So if the current president says we're going into Venezuela, we really don't have any control over that right now. So if we are going to do that, the only thing we can do is not make it cease to exist. The only thing we can do is make it work. Or at least try to make it work as best as we can. And considering that we have a million other things on our plate right now, more important than this, like in Europe and Asia, I would say that we need to have a very quick exit strategy plan to get out of Venezuela. That's what I would generally assume. But outside of that, I don't really think this is a good idea, even with how bad off the Venezuelan military really is. And they continuously show that day after day. But with that, it is time for us, folks, to move on out of the Caribbean news and the adventures of Captain Crack Sparrow, and it's time for us to all move on over into East Asia and start working our way back towards Ukraine and Europe. But before we get on into all of that, I do have to take a little bit of a brief moment, because we've been talking about news for a hot minute, folks, and I want to make sure that we get to chit-chat with a couple of y'all here in the chat before we move on into the rest of our news for the night, to have a little bit of a brief intermission for people to go get snacks, a sip of water, or maybe go to the restroom for a minute before we continue on our news. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first Super Chat segment here. Our first Super Chat goes to none other than, guess who? It is Bobby, LC39A, and he puts in a very generous $100 support. And like we always say, a huge shout out to Bobby for bankrolling the channel day in and day out, and we do appreciate that very, very much, as always. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that generous support. He said, hello to everyone.
And a big hello to you, Bobby43. And a massive thanks to you for the support on November 11th, Armistice Day, or Veterans Day, as folks in America call it. And I gotta thank you amazingly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because you've been helping this channel to keep on running for quite some time, and well on into the future, I'd hope. And I gotta thank you massively for always being one of the folks who greatly enjoy our channel, and not only greatly enjoy it, but go out of your way to support it, because folks like you help us to continuously make this channel possible, day after day, day in, day out, and week after week, month after month, and year after year. It's been an amazing thing, and a huge thanks to you so much once again. Also, by the way, folks, I do have to add this in, because I forgot about this and someone brought it up very wisely in the chat, and this is true, and this is now a added situation here. The Russians are supplying the Venezuelans with arms with each passing day that we're not doing something against Venezuela. So at this point, I have to remember our analysis from last week, which I forgot for a moment, so let me bring it up. If we leave the situation alone now, Russia may continue to arm and support Venezuela until they may actually be a force that might be slightly reckoned with if we tried to go against them. So, with that in mind, now that the Russians are supporting them, this isn't a situation like it was earlier when we were analyzing and saying we have bigger fish to fry. Now this is a larger part of fighting our adversaries, the Russians and the Chinese. Now we generally have to act now, or it's going to be a lot worse later. And we'll be allowing, if we don't act directly against the Venezuelans at this moment, we are going to be allowing the Russians and the Chinese right now to turn Venezuela into an armed foothold and fortress directly within our backyard. So that is a fairly important thing to remember about that situation, is that because we made it into an issue, our adversaries have now made it into an issue that we cannot not address any longer. We will have to address the situation now, or it will start to get far worse later. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best that I can. Very good points that were brought up by folks who remember that from our last week's analysis. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks to you once again, Bobby, for that incredible support.
Yes, indeed. And our second super chat goes to Hackneys and Rhinelanders, also a longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Hackneys, for that very generous $100 support as well. And that's extremely generous of you. And just like Bobby, we appreciate that very, very much. And they said, it's been quite a week and it's only Tuesday. And I appreciate the LSA community and our enforcers and what they've built. And having the space to learn, enjoy, and connect with like-minded people is a massive light in a dark place. And no question, just a gratitude timeout.
Hey, and thank you so much for the unbelievably massive support and the kind words. And I gotta say, a huge thanks to you for the support, Hackneys and Rhinelanders. And it has been one hell of a week. It's been crazy, honestly. And it's only a Tuesday. For a lot of people, it is a crazy day. For Enforcer Man and me, this is quite literally another Tuesday. And I gotta say, a huge thanks to you, though, for the support. It is an amazing and wonderful thing to know how great the Lee Spring Army is. It's an amazing community filled with a lot of really smart people who are very interested in foreign affairs and the position of our sphere, not only here in America, but all of our allies around the world. And it's always great to know that everyone can always rally together here on this channel, the Enforcer channel, here in the Lee Spring Army, and continue to support American and Western interests around the entirety of the globe, and find a large group of people who are largely more so adamant and focused on the big picture instead of the small squabbles that a lot of people get themselves involved in here on the home front. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the kind words and the support. It means a great deal to us, and it also helps us to keep this thing running and get another $5 Costco chicken. And who in the world could ever say...
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, gotta love those $5 Costco chickens. Also gotta like that chicken bake too. I tried that for the first time the other day. It was pretty good.
Man, that chicken bake was good. Honestly, man, that thing was insanely good. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope we addressed that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night.
All right, so this last one here goes to none other than Jenna, last name Tolls. And thank you very much, Jenna, for that massive $100 support as well. And we appreciate that very, very much. And also, it's good to see you in the chat once again. It's been a minute. And once again, they said here, let's see, what did they say? They said, for he is risen, a most glorious of quotes by thy president, for he hath saith, now nobody knows what a magnet is. If you don't have a magnet, you don't have a car. It is thy time.
What does that mean?
I'm not even sure what that means, Jen. I'm not sure what that means. That sounds like something that maybe a politician might have said at one point or another. It sounds like it could be on that level, but I'm not sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta be honest with you. I have no idea what he's talking about. Why make battling good? It's a great thing, a wonderful thing. And I gotta also be honest with you. I don't know what that's about, but I gotta thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because it is folks like you, people like you, not the fake news, that helps this channel to keep on running with your great support. We love the support. People say, sir, the support, it's absolutely incredible. We love to see it, and we do. We greatly love to see it. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And look. You gotta understand, when we run this channel, it's a big thing. Your kids, you gotta ask if there's a man on the moon. But anyways, a huge thing.
Man, you gotta remember, it's a big world out there. If your kids wants to know if the aliens are real, send them outside. Look up at the Himalaya. Xi Jinping, he's on the peak.
The hell's that Himalaya? Xi Jinping. So that a huge thanks to you so much for the support, Jen, and last name tolls, and helping this channel to keep rolling, because it is folks like you who have helped us to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing rolling well on into the future. So a big, humongous thanks so much once again. And also, I see a lot of people asking for different voices. We do all those voices, but we will save the rest of them for the question segment. So the longer question segment at the end of the show tonight. So if y'all want to, stick around and we'll pull those out, and we'll do a couple of voices here and there if y'all really want to hear them. But with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into all of the news that we have from the rest of the world, which is still a lot. Today was crazy, folks. Look at this. Look at the amount of dark gray markers that I have on this map. It was about 50 of them or so, and that's just from the past 48 hours. I mean, it was an insane day. So let us move on into the rest of this news. One, North Korea and Russia are starting to improve their relations, at least in terms of supply. The Russians and the North Koreans are now building a brand new railroad bridge to join the Friendship Bridge to help with increasing the amount of railroad crossings that can be conducted over the Tumen River from both of the countries. So a little bit crazy, I gotta be honest with y'all. It does appear that they are greatly increasing the amount of supplies that they're sending between the two countries. But moving on from that, I also got to bring y'all into China, because China had a lot of interesting stuff happen today. One, we did get to hear that China plans to ease the flow of rare earths to the U.S. by designing a system that will exclude companies with ties to the U.S. military, while fast-tracking export approvals for other firms. That was according to the Wall Street Journal today. So look at that, folks. The Chinese actively trying to screw over the U.S. military. Now, that is something else. And I gotta be honest with y'all. I think that's going to be a bit of a problem. So we'll have to see how the United States reacts to that, but I think at this point, they're pretty much forcing us to have to try and open up some form of rare earth mills or refineries here within the United States to be able to refine the ores into something usable for the U.S. military, considering that they're apparently going to try and cut us out of our own ores that we shipped over to China and had refined over there, and we're trying to get shipped back. So that seems to be an issue.
I thought that the U.S. just met with Xi. I thought they were like smoothing things over. That seems like a very hostile move by China, considering that we just tried to smooth things over. So, maybe people were kind of like glossing over the truth a little bit to sort of make it seem like it was more hopeful than it really was. I personally don't see China being favorable toward the United States, because China's literally doing everything against U.S. interest right now. They're screwing us with the rare earth metals, which is a huge one, and it's also something we need to be able to fix to prepare for war. They're also still supporting Russia, and they're also alleged to be doing some shady business about bypassing sanctions against the Russian Federation too. So it seems like they're extremely hostile against us right now. So I'm not really sure what's changed.
I really don't know what's changed either. I'd have to say, the Chinese are not really making a good case for the United States being friendly for them towards them any longer. I think it's about time that we're going to have to take a openly unfriendly stance towards the Chinese, which may cause a large amount of economic fallout, but it's starting to get around to that because they're pretty much giving us no other choice at this point. But we all know, everyone, that China is bounds ahead of us, bounds and bounds ahead of the United States. You know, when you look at pictures of the United States, you look at the streets of San Francisco covered in human excrement, or you look at a place like New York City filled with druggies and vagabonds, because the wicked American capitalists, they don't care for their common people and their citizenry, unlike the great and socialist communist China, which really does care for all of their people. All of their cities are clad with reflective mirrors on their skyscrapers, giant LED lights, and most importantly, cameras on every single corner of every street, so that way if you ever say something bad against Winnie the Pooh, you'll get put in the slammer immediately. And we never talk about what happens in Western China. That is completely banned. But one thing that we do talk about are those great bridges that they build as a part of their high-speed rail projects and their interstate projects, because nothing says advanced and modern like rapid construction. Many people know of the great constructive efforts that the People's Republic of China has made, including the incredible tofu drag. The tofu drag is probably one of the most incredible technological feats that the People's Republic of China has ever made. Long gone are the days of proper concrete and rebar. Now we are considering that tofu drag, the stuff that crumbles when you grab it in your hand. This is the kind of stuff that builds empires. And you know what's most important about this is that the Chinese built a massive bridge within southwestern China called the I gotta try and pronounce this correctly, because if you mispronounce this, YouTube might have a problem with us. The Hongqi Bridge. There we go. That's the name of it. And this bridge had a bit of an issue. It collapsed. Look at this.
Oh, wow. Oh, damn.
Oh, Chomadillo.
That's a hell of a situation right there. Was the bridge open?
No, it actually was closed about a couple of, I think it was about 12 hours before this, actually.
But before that, it had cars going across it and everything?
Oh, yeah. This thing's been open for a couple of months.
That's wild, honestly. That's sketchy.
Well, you want to know what happened about this bridge?
What happened? Tell us the real scoop.
Well, it's quite an interesting one. So, everyone gather around. I'm going to tell y'all something crazy. The bridge was made of tofu drag. We all know that. But the other thing that doomed this bridge is that when the Chinese constructed it, they're so obsessed with rapid construction that they don't do the things that we do in America to make sure that the structures are sound. And one of those things is geological stabilization, as it's called. And geological stabilization is when we take sticks of dynamite to the surrounding countryside and we just blast it. And if anything's loose or it looks like it could turn into a landslide, it'll turn into a landslide right then and there. The Chinese did not do that. When they built this bridge, they just built it as is, rapidly constructed as most things are in China. And as a result, this landslide right here happened. And the landslide's actually what took down the bridge. So a pretty wild sort of a story. And once again, folks, this is just allegedly what happened. But, I mean, the video kind of does speak for itself. I mean, a landslide did take down the bridge. But you can see here, the landslide, once again, and then the bridge collapsed.
Oh, Chomadillo.
Not a good look.
You would think that they would build the bridge to be able to withstand something like that, but I guess either maybe they had a catastrophic failure or something, or maybe it wasn't built to handle that. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on with that, but for a bridge just to collapse, that's just crazy.
Well, I mean, it's generally that they didn't do any geological stabilization and there was a landslide, because a landslide near to a critical infrastructure in the United States like this that could destroy a major bridge, it doesn't happen because we stabilize the surrounding landscape, and if anything looks like it may be geologically unstable, we get rid of it before the bridge is even built or before we even break ground on the bridge, because this is what will happen. So a bit crazy with that, and I'd have to say, the Chinese got to get a little bit better on the whole construction side of things, to be entirely honest with y'all. But moving on from that, we now got to get to all the fun stuff that happened just south of China today, which is 2 new wars. That's right, everyone. If for one news cycle today, you get 2 wars free. So let's get into the ones that are starting today. Moving on down into Thailand and Cambodia, we have been able to hear that the situation that happened yesterday is now turning pretty much into the preparations for full-blown war today, and war's pretty much coming. To explain the story to y'all, of what happened yesterday, 48 hours ago, near to the area of the Preah Temple, which is, of course, heavily contested between the two sides. If you ask me why, I can't even tell y'all. It's a temple that's directly on the border between the two countries. For some reason, both of them put a great value and stock on this thing. And because of that, an endless amount of international court battles have been fought, and actual wars have been fought for the ownership of the Preah Temple. And it still is within the control of Cambodia at the moment, the main temple, but the northern area of the compound is under the control of Thailand. Recently, on another foot patrol that Thai soldiers were engaged in, apparently another landmine went off on one of the well-trodden footpaths near to the border, which wounded 2 Thai soldiers, and 1 Thai soldier had to have his leg amputated as a result of the landmine exploding underneath him. This has now led to Thailand revoking the peace treaty completely. They have now said the peace treaty is over, and they have also announced the termination of the agreement. At the same time, we are also hearing that forces are now moving to the border in larger numbers, and apparently, according at least to the Royal Thai Armed Forces, they have claimed that the Cambodians have engaged their forces at Surin and also Ubon Ratchathani, engaging and attacking outposts in an attempt to lull the Thai into engaging in open conflict against the Kingdom of Cambodia once again. So it does appear that tensions have returned between Thailand and Cambodia. Not really just tensions, a full-blown war is coming, and it appears that it is unstoppable at this point.
Well, we can say that we were right, at least, I guess, out of the whole thing. Obviously, it's bad a war starting again, but we were saying when the ceasefire was agreed to, we were saying that it really didn't address any of the underlying issues that led to the conflict in the first place. It was a cheap grab at peace. And while some may say, well, it was a noble effort, it was a good attempt, if you know anything about the conflict there in those two countries, most people should have recognized and known that wasn't really going to work out that well. So unless they came to a more comprehensive solution to the issue, that ceasefire was not going to hold up. So it finally did collapse and fall through, which pretty much proved us right.
Yeah, so it does appear that cheap ceasefires and cheap peace treaties just don't work. I got to say this. I was giving fair credit. When the peace treaty was signed, I was actually, I said on the channel, I was like, wow, this is actually shocking. This appears to be the first time that this has ever worked. And now this one's also exploded as well, even after it became a ratified peace treaty. So I guess that goes to show being a peacekeeper or a peacemaker is not as easy as a lot of people would like to make it out to be. Also, by the way, speaking of another thing that had a peace negotiated, at least by the United States, India and Pakistan are going back to war. Again, we already knew that that one was coming, and it's coming earlier than expected. Well, actually, it's really right on time, actually, because I said late fall was probably when they were going to be doing this, and it's late fall right now, so it's come back around. Look at that. I got to be honest with y'all, folks. If we had a tip jar that we put money in for every single time we got analysis correct on a war restarting, the tip jar would be full about this point, because we have gotten it pretty much dead on the nail that every single conflict that's ended, that people said it was done once and for all and forever, they're pretty much all coming back around just within the same year of happening again. So now it's time for us to get on into this story. So in New Delhi, an explosion occurred the other day that ended up killing about 8 people near to a metro station. The explosion was quite significant. Apparently, the explosion started from inside of an automobile near to the area of the metro station, and nearby, Indian authorities found unexploded ammunition, including this 9mm round, or cartridge, that appears to have been unfired and ejected from the vehicle in the midst of the explosion. Afterwards, in Islamabad, in Pakistan, which is also the capital of Pakistan, another explosion occurred inside of the central area of the city, which killed 12 people. At least this explosion did, and it appears to have been another car-based explosion.
What the hell was that at the very end? Did you hear that?
Sounds like a fuel tank blowing up.
Interesting. They were saying that this was an attack on a court inside of Pakistan. So I guess maybe this happened outside of one of their courts in the capital city, based on what I had heard.
It seems like that's highly likely the case, but once again, 2 car bombings, one in New Delhi, in the capital of India, and another in Islamabad, within 24 hours of each other. Afterwards, we did hear that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is apparently going to be having a security cabinet meeting here soon, at 5:30 p.m. local time after the Delhi explosions. We also have been able to hear that a warning was issued by the U.S. Embassy over the explosions and for people to exercise extreme caution, avoid crowds, and pretty much shelter in place is the best way to put it. Outside of that, we then heard that Pakistan put out an official statement, and this is the official statement as follows, from Khwaja Asif, who is the defense minister of Pakistan. And this is the official statement. We are in a state of war. Anyone who thinks that the Pakistani army is fighting this war in the Afghan-Pakistan border region and the remote areas of Balochistan should take today's suicide attack at the Islamabad district courts as a wake-up call. This is a war for all of Pakistan in which the Pakistan army is giving daily sacrifices and making the people feel secure. In this environment, it would be futile to hold out greater hope for the successful negotiations with the rulers of Kabul. The rulers of Kabul can stop terrorism in Pakistan, but bringing this war all the way to Islamabad is a message from Kabul to which, praise be to God, Pakistan has the full strength to respond. So now the Pakistanis are declaring a state of war against Afghanistan once more, and have also insinuated that the Indians are directly involved in this as well, and pretty much incriminating them in the actions that Afghanistan conducted today. As a result of this, Pakistani forces are now on the move and mobilizing throughout the entirety of the country, with one clip coming out today showing what appears to be an armor brigade moving rapidly down the highway through the country to an unknown border area. We're not sure if they're going towards Afghanistan or India at this moment, but we do have some additional information here about the situation and incident that happened in Islamabad and the Pakistani response today. The Pakistani Taliban have claimed responsibility for the terrorist attack in Islamabad. Representatives of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan confirmed their involvement in the bombing near a courthouse in Islamabad, which killed at least 12 people and has injured 27. The terrorists said their targets were judges and officials enforcing un-Islamic laws and vowed to continue attacks until Sharia rule is established in Pakistan. Defense Minister Khwaja Asif declared that the country is effectively at war with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and promised retaliation against Kabul. Local residents report heavy movement of military equipment across the country. Analysts warn that Pakistan now faces a growing risk of a two-front war with Afghanistan and India, while also contending with domestic separatist movements among the Baloch and Pashtun populations. This has led a lot of people to wonder what Pakistan's next moves are going to be, as it does appear that the region is quite literally at the pin drop of starting a brand new conflict, especially between the nuclear-armed powers of Pakistan and India. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this ongoing situation right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So both Pakistan and India are making wild statements. Certainly not statements that are going to tamp down the tensions any. It seems like they're more than ready to go to war with each other once again. So Pakistan's now saying they're in a state of war, and they call negotiations futile with the enemy. And specifically in that post from I believe it was the defense minister, he called them futile. The negotiations were futile with the enemy, and he specifically referenced Kabul, which is in Afghanistan. So what are your thoughts? What is Pakistan about to do? So 39% said Pakistan will attack India, while 32% said Pakistan will probably attack both India and Afghanistan, and only 15% said Pakistan will attack Afghanistan only. So right now, it's really complicated, the whole story right here, but to break it down in a nutshell, the Pakistanis are saying that the Afghan Taliban was behind this attack at the courthouse, but they blamed India for spurring the attack or causing it, or at least supporting it in some way or another. So Pakistan is trying to tie in India once again, and India keeps trying to tie in Pakistan to attacks happening inside of Delhi. So they want to fight. That's the bottom line. They want to fight each other, and they're going to make it happen one way or another. So me personally, I think Pakistan will attack both Afghanistan and India at some point, and we'll probably see, once again, more airstrikes in Afghanistan on the Taliban, and we'll probably see strikes or attacks on the border with India. Probably both of them, actually. Some with the 31%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would also be with the 32%. Pakistan Pakistan is most likely going to be at war with Afghanistan and India within the very near future. They have to reopen the waterways of Jammu and Kashmir to be able to return the flow of water to the Indus River due to the cessation of the Indus Water Treaty of 1960 that the Republic of India is still not willing to negotiate the restarting of. And we also understand that the Pakistanis will be going back to war with Afghanistan due to the actions that happened in Islamabad today. So I would generally have to be honest with y'all, I'm going to be with 32% as well. I think that we're going to be seeing a major conflict where Afghanistan and India will be on the same side against Pakistan. But moving on from that and into the Middle East, trying to pick up the pace here a little bit, folks, so that way we can make sure to get up into Europe and into Ukraine. We have been able to hear within the Islamic Republic of Iran that water reserves are still continuously depleting. And the Institute for the Study of War has shown the different reservoirs around the areas of the city of Tehran, which supply them with their fresh water, and they do appear to be dangerously low at the moment. On top of that, we have also been able to hear further on outside that area that the Russian company Lukoil has declared force majeure within the West Kurna 2 oil fields in Iraq. Iraqi authorities have halted all cash and crude payments to the company. We have also heard additional news inside of Damascus that the United States of America will be reopening its embassy here quite soon, as the United States continues to warm its relationship with the new al-Jilani-led government of the Syrian interim forces. Meanwhile, the Israelis are also conducting further airstrikes against Hezbollah forces within southern Lebanon, with some clips showing that right here. We can also see that in this clip as well. And another clip.
Pretty big bombings, it looks like.
Quite large ones indeed. The Israelis are also expected to be going back to war with Iran here in the near future, so add that to the list of wars that are coming around the corner and are not happening yet, but will be happening here in the very near future. Meanwhile, inside of the Republic of Turkey, which, Matthew, hopefully you got that C-130 poll already, we have also been able to see quite a mysterious incident over the course of the day. A Turkish C-130J crashed within the southeastern area of the country. Apparently 20 military personnel were on board. We're assuming that all are dead at the moment. The C-130 was visibly noted to have been in a flat spin during the crash and then belly flopped into the ground below, which is where we're seeing the debris of the aircraft right now. This incident has brought a good amount of questions from the public as to why the crash occurred, why the C-130 was in a flat spin when it crashed, among many others. The only time we've ever seen aircraft in flat spins before a crash, at least in all of the news reporting that we've done so far, is usually when an aircraft is hit by ground-air defense fire of some kind, including Yevgeny Prigozhin's private jet near to the city of Tver, the Il-20 Kut, which was shot down in a friendly fire incident by Russian forces near to the city of Voronezh, among multiple other incidents of air defense fire shooting down aircraft. It's incredibly common that the debris, or at least the remainder of the fuselage, will enter a flat spin. So it is quite interesting to see that this C-130 had entered a flat spin when it had entered into this crash, or more so into the inevitable crash. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this at the moment, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so that was a very, very strange downing of that aircraft right there. We did see that it apparently just spun straight down to the ground, and it looked like the tail had probably like snapped off or sheared off of the fuselage based on what we were seeing. But it was a very far away photo, or video, so it's kind of hard to tell. But what likely brought this down? Because it seems a little bit strange. And 44% said it was likely Russian forces that downed the aircraft, which is a pretty bold assertion, while 33% said it was likely poor maintenance, and 9% said it was probably something else entirely. So I don't understand here. Honestly, this one is a bit confusing because I see some people saying it looks like the wings detached. I saw Wubba say that, and it's possible the wings detached, but I didn't really see the wings falling to the ground. I did see the tail section apparently falling to the ground, but how that thing just fell out of the sky like that and did literally a spin all the way to the ground, it seems like, in my opinion, that someone shot at it and probably took it down. But to say exactly who did it, that's going to be a little bit iffy right now because we literally have no evidence to say who did it. A lot of people want to point fingers at Russia, and that's a fair conclusion because Russia has shot down planes in the past and tried to play the blame game about it, but we just don't know right now. But it certainly looks suspicious. I will say that with a certainty. This looks very suspicious, like it was downed by something. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say it is quite odd crash, but considering that we don't really have a lot of information beyond the fact that the crash occurred itself, I'd actually have to be within the 15% of being unsure and undecided, as I really don't know what to make of that crash exactly. But moving on out of that news, out of the Republic of Turkey and on into Europe, we have been able to hear within Belgium that there is an ongoing crisis about the liquidation of Russian assets. We're going to skip over this story largely because it's the same old about the Belgians being scared of a Russian reprisal if they liquidate the assets. Meanwhile, in Germany, we've also heard that the Germans are going to be throwing $11.5 billion into Ukraine's pocket for weapons and air defense. Of course, the Germans will classify the exact details of the air defense systems and weapons that they'll be sending, but $11.5 billion is not a small amount. That's actually a massive amount of support that the Ukrainians will be receiving, and hopefully the Germans will be incredibly expedient on delivering that support to the state of Ukraine and helping them with their continued war effort against the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, moving on into Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, we have been able to see a very interesting clip of Ukrainian Mi-8 downing a Russian Shahed drone over northern Ukraine. Take a look at this. When you see them firing onto it, the Shahed catches on fire and then plants itself right into the field below the helicopter. Pretty wild clip. We've never really seen one like that before, and I thought that was quite interesting, to be entirely honest with y'all. Moving on from that and into the location unknowns, we only have one location unknown, which was the Russians, conducting impressive training. The Russians here in this clip are training how to take down FPV drones with sticks. As we all know, sticks and stones may break your bones, but FPV drones will put you in the grave. And it does appear that the Russians took that saying to heart, and they're trying to figure out how to take down these drones with simple sticks. Take a look.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you
Oh,
missed.
wow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Give that man a broom. Oh, wow. He took something down. Look at
Oh,
that.
dang.
Sounds like hyenas.
Man.
Oh, he's having a jolly old time right now. It won't stay that way, though.
I don't think so.
Oh, look, they're training them well. They're saying pick up the drone with the explosive on it. That'll fix you up.
Yeah, man, they're like, take a look at it. Like, hit it a little harder until the bomb goes off. Dang!
Oh, what the hell? Man, what is that stick made of, like, plutonium or something? Why is that thing not breaking?
That is the depleted uranium tree. Like, it's big. It's made of depleted uranium. And away they go into the hubble hole.
Listen to these goofies. They're literally cackling like hyenas.
But anyways, that's the end of the clip. Moving on from that, we also get to see the Russian casualty report. Doesn't appear that tactic is really working too well for him, because according to Miss Decent Keyverler Records, troop losses for the 7-day average has risen to 1,073. Wounded and killed a day. That's not really a good figure. No tanks again, and daily average drops to about the 2 to 3 range. And over the course of the past 24 hours, here on the 11th of November, 1,020 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed. So apparently that whole drone defense tactic isn't really panning out. Along with 1 APC, 79 supply trucks, 17 artillery pieces, 217 drones, and 1 MLRS. Overall, it was a pretty decent day, and it wasn't too bad, all things considered. Moving on from that, and on up into the area of northern Ukraine, we also get to hear that the Russians were attempting to cross the border near Bolahivka, which is a small village near to the area of the active front line right here. But so far, it doesn't appear that the Russians were able to make any sort of concerted advance in this area. It appears the Ukrainians may have been able to repel it, as we haven't gotten any further incidents or information out of that area to confirm that the Russians have made ground. However, moving further on south and into the area that we pretty much got the only frontline information out of, the Battle of Pokrovsk is progressing in a very interesting way. But before I get to that, we will cover this one extra little piece of news at Starobesheve within the occupied territory, as a power plant was hit within this area by the Ukrainian armed forces. Take a look.
Бэтмена вызывают.
Oh, what's that? Is it the power plant? Oh, bleh. Oh, what's this?
Oh.
Oh! Oh!
Oh, my. A little bit of electricity for themselves. Look at that.
Man, they said, get you some electricity, boy! Man, oh!
Damn.
That thermal power plant is going to be out for a little bit while repairs are effected. So, now with that out of the way, it's time for us to move on up into Pokrovsk for a moment. The Battle of Pokrovsk is going in an interesting way. The Battle of Pokrovsk is going to be rounding out here soon. The Ukrainian armed forces will not be able to hold the city for that much longer, and just to make sure that we get you all the most accurate assessment of the front line right now, we will use the Deep State UA map to show you all exactly what the battle at Pokrovsk is looking like at the moment. And it's not looking all too good. Generally, the city of Pokrovsk is halfway controlled by the Russians and about halfway controlled by the Ukrainians. The area in gray is assumed to generally be a bit of a no man's land of a sort, but we also assume that the Ukrainians are somewhere within the no man's land attempting to continue defense against the Russians. However, the city of Myrnograd is pretty much being cut off at this point, with the Russians continuing their advances in the rear line here. So we are going to be assuming that the Battle of Pokrovsk will round out with the Ukrainian withdrawal from the city of Pokrovsk and the city of Myrnograd, as they will move back and reform a defensive line around the area of Hirshine and also Dobropilia, which is along the Ukrainian defensive lines which have been pre-prepared within this area. The Russian Federation is appearing to finally be rounding out the battle with something of a Pyrrhic victory. They've taken about 30,000 wounded and killed in the attempt to take the city for about over a year at this point, which is a significant amount of casualties to take for a single small town. But it does appear that they're finally getting it. But once again, much like the Russians and the endless question, they're winning, but at what cost? I mean, it cost them 30,000 men to take this one city. Pokrovsk is no bigger than Bakhmut. And Bakhmut took, I believe, about 40,000 men, 50,000 about, wounded and killed, for them to take that town as well. So, generally, not looking too good. But we will see how the battle continues to evolve. Still, we did get a lot of clips out of the area today. One of them showing us the Ukrainian drones ambushing Russian logistics here in the rear line, near to Myrnograd. We see one of the Russian Buhanka pickups trying to bebop its way down the road, but this drone's about to stop its bebopping days. And there goes the Russians, but looks like they will be having an unfun day. Oh, and there goes another Buhanka.
Oh, look, that little drone was lying in wait the whole time for it to go by.
And they got it again. And here goes another one.
Look at that. The Russians drove into a drone net corridor, but the drones are literally sitting right in front of the corridor to be able to chase it down when it goes inside. That's interesting.
That is really interesting. Really smart, actually.
It's like a speed trap.
We now see them trying to target what appears to be a UAZ 469 that was hiding inside of a dugout. They got it. And also what seems to be a KAMAZ supply truck, which they also got as well. Here's a civilian vehicle requisition for military use, which is also being destroyed. And that thing.
That thing right there, it just got me a little bit scared. Honestly, that looks like Putin on a bad day. That's Putin if he didn't have body doubles.
Man, that's Peskov right there, isn't it?
That could be. Very sharp teeth, or I must say right there. Dilated eyes, too. Do you think he could be on something?
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I accidentally show myself on the video, and then they sit there and ask me, oh, man, what's he on? Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, moving on from this thing, I don't know what that is, but moving on from that thing, and on into the rest of the news that we have from the area, we also got to see the Russians hit the city of Myrnograd with a Fab 3000, which is quite significant.
A very big hit.
Still, the Ukrainians hold out in the city, although they're getting hit with some of the largest bombs the Russians can throw at them. And we also get to see a Ukrainian tank firing on Russian positions north of Pokrovsk within the Myrnograd area. You see the tank rolling on forward through the town. Turn that down a little bit so that way we can commentate over it. But we can see them rolling on through the town, slewing the tank's turret, trying to find targets to lay into.
It must be worth it to Russia to lose this many men to take one little place. It's taken them a long time to even come to this point at all, like really.
You know, it's absolutely crazy because a lot of people make it out to be that 30,000 men wounded and killed to take a town isn't that bad. The United States never took these numbers of losses to take any given area within the Second World War. The United States had a casualty report at the end of the Second World War, which was 4 years for us, of about 550,000 men. And when you look at that, and you compare that to what the Russians are dealing with right now, and the highest lost battle that we ever had, which was the Battle of Aachen, which was our version of Stalingrad, it still came nowhere close to being a drop in the bucket to what the Russians have lost to just try and take Pokrovsk.
Yeah, really. It's such a terrible situation because it's all these guys from the Russian side are just being thrown into this. They're getting lost day in and day out by the thousands. It's just a tough situation. It's truly, like one person said, James Matthias said, it's scorched earth. This town is ruined. Like Pokrovsk is basically ruined.
It's been laid to waste, really. Practically every single town that's been in Battlefield has been laid to waste. But moving on into the area south of Pokrovsk, we also got to see the Russians making their way on into town this morning under the cover of fog.
Oh, look, the bike brigade. Oh, look, the thing.
Oh, Roadnik! Oh, my God! Oh, my God!
Isn't it like it's creeping along like a sick animal too? Like the way it's like barely creeping forward. Go back and show that again. It's like a sick, dying rabbit animal or something like that. Look at it creeping along, busted suspension. You got guys hanging off the back. That suspension is cooked, by the way.
Man, honestly, a Buhanka pickup. Oh,
Nasty, nasty.
man, a chopped UAZ 469.
Honestly, it's all chopped.
But this is how they were making it into the city of Pokrovsk early this morning, was under the cover of fog. The only problem is that 2 hours later a video then emerged showing that very same convoy on the road after the fog lifted, and they had been completely blitzed. This is the exact same crossroad y'all just saw in the clip. And the Ukrainians are about to show what they just did to that convoy when they were trying to make it towards Pokrovsk. It's not a pretty sight. Large amounts of the Roadnik vehicles were obliterated just a little bit further up the road and completely taken out.
You know, the funny part is they don't look much different than they did when they were in working order.
Oh, oh, man, honestly, that's true, really. It's a sad reality of the Russian army that they really do look like an army of the already destroyed and dead whenever they're moving anywhere, but they still appear to have been a little bit extra destroyed, just a little tidbit extra.
Man, forbid the Russian roadniks ever get a little motion. I'm telling you, they get a little motion, all of a sudden they lose their motion pretty quick, and they become stationary.
Man.
Honestly, it seems like what happens to these poor little roadniks right here, these little chopped vehicles and stuff like that, is they just lose their motion because they don't change appearance at all. They stay ugly, they stay broken, they just stop moving.
Man, God forbid a Ruski get a little motion. Like, man,
Yeah, a little motion. They wish they had some of that motion. They got a lot of stillness right now.
Man, and they're still as death out here on that street. Doesn't really look like they're moving much at all. Because they're not. But moving on from that clip and out of that general bit of news right there, it does appear that the Battle of Pokrovsk is grinding on. And Matthew, what are people thinking about the Battle of Pokrovsk right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so right now there's a big question mark about Pokrovsk. Is Ukraine going to hold it or not? Because we did see in the footage there that heavy fog in Pokrovsk is preventing Ukraine from launching drones for at least a large part of the days recently, which prevents them from attacking the Russian forces because drone warfare is the main way that Ukraine repels these Russians that are hitting their positions. So what are your thoughts? 32% said Ukraine will keep Pokrovsk from Russia, while 30% said Ukraine will lose Pokrovsk due to the fog, and 22% said the weather might clear up. So we're seeing, apparently, or at least what I've seen so far, it looks like the fog comes day in and day out, and it lifts through some points of the day just long enough for Ukraine to launch limited attacks like we saw on the roadway with all those Russian vehicles blasted into oblivion. So it's hard to tell. Me personally, I have a bad feeling about Pokrovsk. I think Ukraine might lose it, but at the same time, though, it's like all of Russia's victories in the past. It's a victory for propaganda reasons. They've taken heavy losses to get it, and even if Russia does get it, they're going to have to stop and regroup from there because they've taken so many losses simply to take that small area. They've got to do a lot of soul searching at this point to try to get their forces back into fighting shape. So I'm with the 31%. I do think Ukraine will lose it, but it's not a monumental loss. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I would be with the 31%. I think the Ukrainians are going to lose Pokrovsk. The Russians are slowly making their way through the city, and while they're taking incredibly high losses, that is not going to stop them from taking the city. Many cities have been lost in the past in this war, just to name a few. Let's see. Bakhmut, Toretsk, Severodonetsk, and Lysychansk, Rubizhne, Svatove, let's see here, what else? Oh, yeah. Melitopol, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Volnovakha, Vasilivka, Tokmak, let's see, Kherson for a while, and then everything inside of Crimea, and everything inside of Donetsk, Luhansk, Orlivka, Alchevsk, and so on. And it has not stopped the Ukrainians from being able to defend the territory properly and still inflict insanely large casualties on the Russians for small amounts of ground gained. So in my opinion, the Ukrainians are going to lose this city, but this does not mean that they're going to lose the war. Every single battle is not a war-ending battle. This is just another battle like any other. The Russians lost a huge amount of men to take a city that really won't count in the big picture, and that's it. And that'll be the end of the battle, and the battles will move on elsewhere to another city. And the Ukrainians will hold that one for another year and inflict another 30,000 losses on the Russians before they take it, and so on and so forth. Eventually, the Russians will run out of money or they'll run out of men. That's generally what we're working off of right now. But moving on out of the Battle of Pokrovsk and on up into Kyiv, we do have the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this very day of the war, day 1356. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я. Сьогодні в Херсоні вже третя річниця звільнення міста від росіян. Окупанти втекли звідси. Ми пам'ятаємо, як сміливість наших людей зробила це, як українські прапори повернулись у місто Херсон. Я дякую кожному нашому воїну, хто бився заради Херсону, кожному, хто захищає це прекрасне місто зараз, життя наших людей. Провів сьогодні тут нараду з усіма, хто відповідає за безпеку. Також були наші військові сили безпілотних систем. Визначили, що треба дати Херсону, щоб було більше захисту. Тисячі ударів російських дронів щомісяця проти цього міста. Фактично постійна така загроза. Визначив, що наші сили безпілотних систем, птахи Мадяра і інші підрозділи збільшать тут спроможності, саме спроможності захисту. Важливо все це реалізувати. Визначили завдання для захисту доріг, логістики. Урядовці допоможуть. У п'ятницю я проведу спеціальну ставку щодо прифронтових міст. І сьогодні є також рішення по енергетиці, по обладнанню для Херсона, фінансування додаткове. Максимум завтра ці рішення мають бути ухвалені урядом на рівні відповідних міністрів. Обласна влада дала запити на потреби громад Херсонщини. Це повинно бути забезпечено щодо садочків, підтримки освіти, всіх соціальних потреб. Люди тут заслуговують на більшу підтримку. Я вдячний усім, хто береже наш Херсон, працює тут для дітей, для того, щоб місто та громади функціонували, щоб було забезпечення життя. Найменше, що може зробити держава, це шана, вдячність. І визначив сьогодні в Херсоні саме таких наших людей. Я їх всіх відзначив і нагородами, і волонтерів, зокрема Андрія Петухова, вчителя, Ларису Паладій, лікарів, рятувальників, поліцейських, інших наших захисників міста. Зірку Героя України я передав синові, справді, героя-фермера, якого дуже добре знали в Херсоні та в усій нашій державі. Олександра Гордієнка. Він дуже багато зробив, щоб Херсонщина жила, щоб розмінувати наші українські землі, захистити від дронів. Ми пам'ятаємо його, ми шануємо усіх наших людей, які дбають про нашу державу, про свою громаду, про ближніх, іноді навіть більше, ніж дбають саме за себе. Дякую всім, хто з Україною, дякую всім на нашій Херсонщині. Слава Україні!
Slava.
Slava.
And-
Honestly, Ukraine, Zelensky's out there in the streets of Kherson. He's literally in the streets. I heard the cars going by on his camera. That's wild.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. Honestly, Zelensky does a pretty good job being there and rallying the folks in the nation. But with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1,356 of the war. And it's time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream. But I see someone in the chat say something that I'd have to disagree with, and it's an interesting point, and this is one for discussion. Someone's actually saying that we have massively downplayed the loss of Pokrovsk because Pokrovsk is a major battlefield to lose in, and it will make the Ukrainians suffer dearly for the loss of it. And that seems like that would be the case, but here's my counter to that. The Ukrainians lost Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, which are far larger cities than Pokrovsk, singularly. Combined, they are tectonic compared to Pokrovsk in size. Pokrovsk has about 65,000 people living in it, and that much of a built-up area surrounding it. The city of Severodonetsk alone had a population of about 130,000 people, and was far larger and far more important as a strategic position than Pokrovsk. More importantly, Lysychansk is on a height overlooking Pokrovsk, and also is home to another 120,000 people, and is also a defensive position positioned directly along the Seversky Donets River. The Ukrainians lost both of these in the latter part of 2022, and since then, the Russians have only made it, in about 3 years' time from then, about 8 miles out of Lysychansk. So they're making about 2 miles every year after gaining significant defensive heights and also a logistics hub, at least from what we would have known at the time. The Battle of Bakhmut was the deadliest battle to have ever happened on Ukrainian soil from what we know so far. About 50,000 Russians died in the Battle of Bakhmut to take this city. And everyone said that if the Ukrainians lost Bakhmut, because major highways intersect within this area, around the city and within the city, that if the Ukrainians lose it, then they will eventually end up giving the Russians a springboard logistically to be able to conduct offensives directly down the highway to Slavyansk and directly towards Konstantinivka. The Battle of Bakhmut was lost by the Ukrainians, considering that they lost the city, in late 2023. It's 2 years later now, and the Russians have only made it from the outskirts of Bakhmut about 6 miles in about 2 years, meaning that they're making about 3 miles a year at this point, and they finally just took most of Chasiv Yar recently, and still haven't even taken the majority of Chasiv Yar yet. And so these cities that are lost, and also on top of that, the Battle of Avdiivka went on for 3 years, up until last year, and the Russians lost tons of forces to take Avdiivka. They finally took Avdiivka, and the only reason that they made any advances somewhat quickly towards Pokrovsk is because there's really no good defensive positions in the fields between the two cities, and the Russians used the railway corridor that was tree-lined to try and make a lightning offensive towards Pokrovsk. And even after that, they made it to Pokrovsk in about 2.5 months afterwards, and then for a whole other year, they've been fighting for Pokrovsk, and Pokrovsk has now become the second deadliest battle in the entirety of the war in Ukraine. They've lost about 30,000 men trying to take this one city. And so I would have to say that while it would seem on the surface that losing a city is going to be a major thing for the Ukrainians, losing a city in the past has never meant really anything for the Ukrainians because they're on the defensive. And the Russians are on the offensive, and the problem is that these cities will remain so close to the active front line well after the battle's concluded with a Russian victory of technically taking the city. The Russians are never able to use these towns as logistics hubs or anything else for that matter to any degree of efficiency to actually make an impact on the front line. So I would say I see where you're coming from, and I would have to disagree, however, because of those prior mentioned statements and the facts that the Russians took these quote-unquote strategically significant cities, and yet it never resulted in any massive gain for the Russians in offensive capabilities or potency. So I hope that does address to the best I can. Good point, though. And with that, it is time for us to get on into the questions, where we get to talk to each and every one of you all. And that is an incredibly fun time, because we get to talk about literally anything and everything throughout the entirety of this last segment of the show. And I gotta say, I hope you all have enjoyed our news tonight, because there were a massive people here. We had 14.2 thousand people here tonight at the peak, and 85,000 people have watched this stream in just 2 hours. That's a lot of people, and we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here for the news segment, and we hope that y'all stick around for the question segment, because who knows, we might talk about international Costco's tonight, which apparently was wildly interesting to a lot of people the last time we did that. We might do something similar. But with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night. As y'all might tell, we are fresh out of polls, so there are no more of those to address. So we have our super chats left, our live chats, and our Morse code decoders of the stream. So a lot of interesting questions to get into tonight. Also, by the way, I do see Marion Deemer in the chat is telling me to watch a movie here, which she's recommending. Let's see here. I was trying to go back up and see the movie here. I think it was something about, I was trying to scroll back up. I lost it, like literally right as I was trying to say something about it. Let's see, here it is. It's a film. Dang it, it's up some more. Let's see here. Dang it, I don't know where it went. I'm trying to go back up and find it.
You had it happen to you. Dude, I thought it was crazy whenever that would happen before, because it always happened to me. I was trying to go back and find something. It'd be like it disappeared.
Oh. Okay, so it's Winter on Fire. That's the movie she's recommending right there. It's a movie about the Ukrainian fighters. I'll have to watch that. I will have to watch it. I do see that. I will tell you this though, Marion. I just got my TV set up. Like, that is one of the last things here. We did get a TV set up finally. But the catch is though, like we had the same problem at Enforcer HQ 2 or 3.0, whichever one it was called. We were furnitureless the entire time except for a bed, desk, and chair. So we were all work. Whenever it was time to do something to like calm down or something like that, it was time to hit the rug, which means lay on the rug because there was no couch. So this time we are remedying that issue. We are actually getting proper furniture this time to go in our places, so that way we actually have somewhere to sit. So maybe this time I will watch that movie from a couch instead of the rug, because honestly, rugs are rugs, but they're not for really, comfort, I guess you could say. I'm living like Steve Jobs, folks, okay? I'm trying to get out of it though. I'm trying to break the habit. But it's now time to jump into our super chat questions. So jumping into our first one here, this one goes to Mark Ead, and Mark puts in a very generous $50 support, and a huge shout out to you, Mark, for helping to keep the channel running, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, Model T rail car, Pleasant Point, NZ.
Pleasant Point, New Zealand. And there's a Model T rail car here. Model T rail car? Is that it? Oh my goodness. Look at that.
That is whack right there. That is crazy.
That is crazy. It's kind of like the Galloping Goose that is up at the Durango and Silverton. Let me pull that up for you. This is like the American equivalent of that thing. Hold up. Let me go to the pictures of it. This thing, the Galloping Goose, which was, I think, a track inspection vehicle or something back in the day, but nowadays they use it for tourist excursions on the Durango and Silverton. This thing is whack, but this thing, honestly, is classier compared to this. Like, this kind of looks like odds and ends put together, but I appreciate it, though. It's really unique. This thing, literally looks like a Model T, but they replaced the wheels with rail car wheels, and then they enlarged the cab. Pretty unique, I'm not gonna lie. That's actually pretty cool. And so I gotta thank you massively for the support and pointing this thing out, because I've never heard or seen of this thing before. And and Alexander just said not so pleasant. I mean, it's not as unpleasant as the Galloping Goose, like the Galloping Goose is in a camp of its own, kind of looking like that. Yeah, oh, wait a minute. I forgot to mention, y'all. It wasn't a track inspection vehicle. I forgot to mention that because I just saw that on the side and it just jogged my memory. This thing was actually a mail carrier, which is the crazy thing about it, because the Rio Grande didn't want to spend the money of running a full train up and down this mountainous pass that they were running this railroad in. So what they did to cut down on cost is that they made this thing, and they would just load it up with the mail, and then they just go up the mountain and drop off the mail to whoever was up there, and they would still use the railroad. So pretty neat, honestly, to think about it like that, because you know what this thing reminds me of, Matthew? It reminds me of that half-track sled thing that guy had in the stop-motion Rankin Bass Santa Claus is Coming to Town deal. This thing reminds me of that.
Yeah, it kind of does look like it, honestly. I kind of like it, actually. I think it looks pretty neat.
It's really unique. Honestly, man, it almost looks apocalyptic, honestly.
Yeah, I will say though, from this angle, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, it looks like a chopped off school bus or something like that from this angle. Yeah, I take it back. I actually don't like this thing. I don't like it.
Man, well, see it from the side. Look at that side profile.
Oh yeah, honestly, that looks like a Roadnik, but it's not. It's on rails.
Man, honestly, man, I mean, like, if you gave this thing to me and said, this is your railroading dream, I'd say I'd pass. Like, I'd be like, I'm good, honestly. It's cool, like, but it's not something that I'd want to, like, wander around in all the time. Not really my go-to. But this thing, honestly, this thing looks better.
Yeah, between all of them, I'll say that does look better. I will agree with that.
Yeah, and also the red is really clean. I like that. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And pointing this thing out to it. This thing just looks even more bizarre now. I mean, look at that. Dude, you know what this looks like, man? This looks like one of the cars that was down in Memphis, man, when we took that wrong turn.
Yeah, maybe so, maybe.
Man, cruising down the street in my 6.4. Man, this is my 6.4 right here.
Man, that is, I guess. I guess.
Man, he guesses. He supposes. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, oh, wait a minute, there's a butcher shop right here at Pleasant Point. What's up? Oh, they don't have any pictures on the inside, but they got a pig out there. Man, I didn't know.
Oh, look at that.
Man.
It's like a porky pig lookalike or something like that. The funny fact is this: where we used to live, the whole place was a butcher shop.
Man, because people were getting cut up left and right. Man.
I tell you, it felt like it. I'll tell you what, you're like, damn, what are they doing out here? I mean, salami, prosciutto. I mean, what are they doing out here? Cold cuts, hot cuts. I mean, anything.
Man, they was doing chopped cheese like it's all over the place.
I'll tell you what. Man. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I tell you, man, those old streets, those quarrelsome streets of Birmingham. I mean, goodness gracious. Those were some rough streets, I'll tell you all, folks. Good thing we didn't have to live downtown, because if we did, oh goodness, my heavens, folks, I don't think we would have survived. So luckily we didn't live downtown, and if you ever went downtown, God bless your souls, because it was a rough place, it really was. But anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the next one. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our next super chat goes to none other than Blind Man. And Blind Man puts in a massive $100 support. Very generous, by the way. And thank you very much, Blind Man, for helping to make this channel possible as well. And we do appreciate that support a whole bunch. And he said, everybody needs a bit of light in this dark time. And mine is the Northern Lights, reaching peak brilliance in the Peoria, Illinois region. And thanks for doing such a wonderful job in LSA. And please sponsor a live chat question in my stead.
And a huge thanks to you for the massive support, Blind Man, and helping this channel to keep on running. And folks, I did hear that there was a solar storm going on, and I'm curious, can we see the Northern Lights from here? I'm going to check really quickly. Hold up, folks. It's not going to be that long.
I can't see them as I'm actually facing south, so I'm not going to be able to see them, I don't think.
I probably have to walk outside to go see him, which is a shame. So we'll have to hold that off until after the show, and then I might go and see if the Northern Lights are visible, because I got to work before the sun went down. And then the sun went down, so I never really got to look outside. But I have been hearing about that, and hopefully, for those of y'all who can see the Northern Lights, hopefully y'all are getting a good look at them, because I've always heard that they're really impressive, and that would be really neat to see. But something that's really wild, Blind Man, something that's really wild, is that one of those could take us off air, because way back in the day, a long, long time ago, right before the U.S. Civil War, something happened called the Carrington event. And the Carrington event was a massive solar storm that happened, and one of these solar flares directly hit Earth, and it fried everything on the planet. Everything that was electronic at that time, which was only telegraphs, was burned out completely. I think there were some descriptions of what happened. Let me see if I can find one of these descriptions. Let's see. Some operators were able to continue and send and receive messages despite their disconnected power supplies. The following conversation occurred in 1859. Let's see. Interesting. So they actually knew that it was it had something to do with the aurora borealis going on overhead. Because this guy said, and we were working with the auroral current. How do you receive my writing? Huh. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Also, by the way, I will actually walk outside far enough to go see if I can photograph it real quick. If you want to, I can see if I can photograph it.
Yeah, go see if you can, because I'd be interested in seeing if we can actually physically see that from here in Salt Lake.
Yeah, give me about 2 or 3 minutes here, and I'll see if I can spot it. If I can't, though, I'll just come back and I'll let everybody know.
Yeah, so we'll see. Some people are saying that apparently it's visible all the way down to Florida. So we should be able to see it. Hopefully we will be, and we'll get a report from Matthew and see if that is the case. But beyond that, the Carrington event is probably the largest solar storm that the Earth has ever been hit by. So generally, it is something that is somewhat scary, because those types of solar storms that we're going through right now, they could happen and knock everything off completely as far as the internet is concerned and electricity is concerned, which would be serious, because we would have to rebuild everything from the ground up, at least in that degree. And that could take some time and also cause a great deal of economic damage to the entire world. So hopefully we're not hit with a solar storm like that again, because that would be incredibly concerning, to say the least. But beyond that, I do have to say, a massive thanks to you so much for the support. And also, Peoria, Illinois. I've never looked at that place. Peoria, Illinois. Isn't this the home of the Rock Island Railroad? I actually don't know. But let me take a little look around here. Let's take a little gander, huh? Peoria, Illinois. Ah, yes, the big barges. You gotta love the big barges. And the steamboats. You gotta love the steamboats. And there's a huge storm right there. And there's a nice building right there, Victorian era. And let's take a look at some other places around here. This castle-like building right here, unfortunately, I don't know what that is. Apparently Bradley University. And they also have the Cardiovascular Institute and an Olive Garden. That is really something. And Qdoba Mexican Grill. Now, that is pretty good. That's pretty good right there. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty decent. And, you know, I'm interested here. Whose railroad runs through here? I'm curious about that, you know. I got to be curious about that. It doesn't say. The Peoria and Pekin Union Railway. What in the world? Is that a Genesee? That's a Genesee and Wyoming company. So, oh well. They got that same orange paint job that everyone's got. So, interesting though. Let's drop down in downtown Peoria. Take a little look around. Oh, this doesn't look too bad, actually. Doesn't look too bad. So, I'd have to say, hopefully.
So here's the catch, folks. I actually cannot see them at all. I think it's because of light pollution near my area. So I actually can't photograph them, see them, or anything. So it looks like we were fresh out of luck here. I have a south and north facing view, so I couldn't see it from either way. So sadly, no aurora.
Well, I don't know why I can hear your clothes rustling in the microphone, but I guess that is.
I'm wearing my jacket because I had to go outside and it was kind of cold.
Man, how cold was it?
It's I think it's like 30.
Oh wow, that is pretty cold. That's like freezing technically, I think. Jeez, that's crazy. But beyond that, what in the world? The Caterpillar Proving Ground? What is this? Oh my god! This is where they prove the caterpillars. Did you know they did that here in Peoria, Illinois, Matthew? Did you?
I did not know that, actually. I knew they did it somewhere, though. They have like a little show they put on for people here. Like you go and sit in a little glass box on the side and you watch these things move around.
Man, that is crazy. I didn't know that they did that. That is so cool. I mean, look at this, man. They got like a giant like tank proving ground out here for these.
That's impressive, actually. They're probably doing this for like the big like company or big contracts, probably like the people that buy like lots of equipment. They put on probably a show for them to get the contract.
Man, that is crazy cool, though. How far can we get up there on Street View? About right here. What in the world is the dome?
The dome?
And this guy just got done painting the lines. Like, he literally has the line painting machine for that parking lot right there. But that is the entrance to the Caterpillar Proving Grounds. That is really cool. And also, Blind Man just said my uncle works at the Proving Grounds. Wow, that is so cool. I actually didn't know that happened here in Peoria. Of all places, Peoria, you know? Like, I thought that would be somewhere else for some reason, like Iowa or something, but it's here in the middle of Illinois. That is really neat. And also, what else? What else is here in Peoria of interest, of note? What is here? Let's see here. Let's take a look around. Is this a steel mill? Looks kind of like one. Or a rolling mill, that might be what it is. And then you got a lot of heavy industry. You also have the water treatment facility right there. Oh, this is the Caterpillar factory right here.
Oh, look at that. They're just building them right there. They said put the machinery together right here. I guess that could qualify as the Bobcat factory.
I guess so. Man, this is a huge area. Look, like here's a Caterpillar building all the way over here, and it's pretty much just this entire area right here.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of space to build all that earth-moving heavy equipment.
Yeah, and it's rail served. They have flat cars sitting out here just waiting to be loaded up with, or unloaded with stuff. This is wildly interesting, folks. Like, I like, this is a massive facility. Let's look at the visitor. They don't have any pictures. How about here? Well, how about here?
This place may be closed, it says.
I don't think so. I think it's probably open. A lot of people in this economy would need industrial machinery, for stuff, I guess. I don't know. But this is just so interesting. Like the whole Caterpillar factory is here. What's on the other side of the river? A distillery.
Oh, whoa, it's distilling what?
I don't know. That's huge. Like industrial grade alcohol, I guess. I don't know. But that
Industrial grade alcohol, that's something right there.
I don't know, but it's huge. Whatever that is, that's really cool. Wow, this place is really interesting. It's like Chicago. The Peoria Riverfront Museum and the Caterpillar Visitor Center. What's in the cat? Oh my God, dude! It's just
Oh wow,
it's
that
just
brand new equipment.
man, and then they got the old equipment.
Oh, that old stuff. Also, by the way, did we ever get the live chat for Blind Man Super Chat?
Not yet. We're still talking about Peoria because he said he could see the northern lights there. And man, they got the giant dump trucks that are over there at Bingham Mine in this place.
Let's see, out of curiosity, how much cat big dump truck cost? Oh, so was that a 797 that we just looked at right there, that big dumper?
Oh yeah, the 797F.
Ah, so according to Wikipedia, how much do y'all think this costs, by the way? Take a stab at it before I just tell the answer.
$4 million.
4 million? You say $4 million for that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting guess right there. I'm waiting to see what the people in the live chat are saying before I give the answer here real quick. I mean, it's a big vehicle for sure, but $4 million, I mean, that's a pretty high estimate right there. Somebody will probably get the number right on the nail, though, in a second. I'm sure somebody will.
So wait, that's actually high?
Well, possibly so. Possibly. It's definitely a little high, but it may not be wrong, but it's a little bit high. Let's see. Someone's saying 500 mil, 10 mil, 1 mil. Dang, everybody's all over the place. 2 mil.
500 million.
500 million. I think the company would go out of business if they had to buy them for that. Someone said 700K. So the answer is they each cost approximately $5 million a piece.
Oh, that was close.
That's for the truck. But how much do the tires cost? That's the other question here, because those tires are huge. $42,000 each tire is $42,000 for that thing. A full set requires 6 tires that cost $5.5 million.
Oh my God, that is insane.
So that's pretty damn expensive. You don't want to flat with that.
No, you don't, man. How many of those does Bingham Mine have? How many large dumpers does Bingham Mine have? 64.
Oh, hold on. Let's do the math on that real quick. So 64 times 5 million. That is, hold on. I don't give it to me like that in a raw number like that. Let's see here. $325 million.
Oh my God. $325 million of dump trucks.
That's if they bought them brand new, by the way.
I would be honest with you, man. A mine like this, moving this kind of stuff, I bet you they make enough money that they could buy those new, probably.
Probably so, but at the same time, let's see. Rio Tinto annual revenue. I'm curious to see what they make. Let's see here. Oh, well, that's why they can afford it. It says here, at least according to Google, Rio Tinto's annual revenue for the fiscal year ending in December 31st, 2024 was $54 billion. So that's how they're able to afford the dump trucks.
Also, the dump trucks are like a minor expense for them, actually.
Yeah, it's like, buying lunch or something.
Honestly, that is just insane, man. $5 million for a Caterpillar. Let me make sure to spell this right. Caterpillar. Oh man,
Also, people are making a good point. They're saying we bet that they lease the dump trucks. I would imagine they probably do. Like, it seems like it'd be a smarter thing to do would be to lease the trucks. Probably so. I'm not really sure how that works, but I would imagine they probably lease them if they have the option.
But man, that is just insane. Like I don't know. They might not lease them because in most not in most heavy machinery, but I know at least for the railroads, there are leasing companies, but it's very rare for EMD or GE to lease out engines directly from their factory to a railroad. Like, it happens, but it's super rare. Usually it's done through like a leasing company like GATX, which specializes in leasing. It's like the railroad's version of Penske. But most railroads own their engines outright. But the cars, on the other hand, like the rail cars, they actually do lease those in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. But I would assume that they probably wouldn't lease these out because who else is going to use these, so they probably make them buy them, I assume.
Well, that's just one expense, though. Like, dump trucks are just a small piece of their operation. They got to have excavators, those massive front loaders, probably some bobcats, and all kinds of trucks, vehicles, etc., and including all the processing equipment too. So, I mean, they're extremely heavy in equipment cost, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would have to assume. And also, man, there's got to be a whole bunch of other things like that giant crane or these giant cranes in general. Like, I wonder how much those things cost.
Let's see here. I can tell you how much they cost generally. Let's just say, I don't know what model of crane that is. Let's say it's a lever crane or leave here, however you say the name. It's that German company that makes cranes. Let's see here. So, oh wow, they have a hell of a lot of models of cranes. I didn't know they made this many. Wow, they have like a whole market of cranes, like, and many different competitors for them. I didn't even know this was such a thing. I thought there was only like a handful of cranes, but wow, dang, there's a lot. Let's see here. I can't even begin to tell you what crane that is right there. There's a huge market for cranes.
Man, I mean, like the industrial world has like a whole thing going of its own, like where they market and sell and lease and everything. It's interesting. It's wildly interesting. But take a shot. Just go for a mega crane. We're looking for one of the larger ones out there.
Let's see here. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get an estimate on a big one. Let's see here. I'm looking for a quote on a big crane, sir. I'm looking for your most powerful one. Let's see, the crawler crane. Let's see here. The LR crawler crane. What is the cost on that? Let's see here. Paste, cost. So, they don't really advertise the prices of these things right here, actually. I'm not really seeing the price out here for it. Freecranespecs.com. Oh, look, they have a listing for like cranes, like a Craigslist for cranes. So I'm seeing a pretty big crawler crane right here for 1.1 million. That's not too bad. Let's see here. Well, let's see. Wow, this is a crazy site. They sell all kinds of stuff. So it looks like it's somewhere in the probably 1 to 2 million, 3 million range or something like that. So it's not as much as the dump truck, I don't think, but it's close. And that's like a medium-sized crane right there. So if you get larger than that, you could be spending upwards of more.
Yeah, and then you got to get an excavator too. Like not like like a backhoe excavator or anything like that, like a industrial one with the scoops. You know the one I'm talking about. But you have to get one of those too. And I don't let's see if we can find one of those on the satellite here. Oh, there's just a normal excavator right there for some reason, but we're looking for the big industrial ones, the ones that really are moving the earth. And where in the world would those be? I don't know. There's the 797s right there to give you an idea of how large this place is again. I think I do that every night, like showing you all this place and be like, look how big it is. This thing is huge. Oh, look. Oh, wait a minute, they actually just have the shovels.
So let's see here. So I'm trying to look. You know those huge front loaders, right? The ones that like pick up raw material to go dump it in the pile and stuff like that. Those machines. You know which one I'm talking
yeah,
about?
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So the big model of those, like the mega model, is called the 994K wheel loader. It's like you can pull up a picture of it. It's like the huge, massive mine front loader. Really a truly big one. It looks like, at least according to Reddit, because I can't find any other estimates pretty much anywhere else, it looks like they cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 million a piece. But you got to add delivery and assembly too, because apparently they do it like a motorcycle or a car. Sometimes you have to pay for the dealer cost apparently. So somewhere above 2.5 million for the huge mega wheel loader.
Huh. Man, that's pretty expensive. You know, these dragline excavator things here, like the giant shovels, those things appear to be quite crazy as well. Like I was just looking at some of them, and they are massive. I mean, these things are tectonic in size, like multi-story buildings tall. And apparently they can move on their own, so that's also kind of wild too. But I'm trying to see if I can find a modern one of these.
Oh, look, here's Machinery Trader. Oh wow, look, there's a 1994 Caterpillar 994 for $295,000. Payments as low as $6,000 a month. Wow, that's not too bad. Let's see. Let's see here. What's a newer one cost? Oh, there's a 2012 Caterpillar 994H for 2.2 million. Payments as low as 46,000 a month. That's not too bad. Let's see here. They don't have any really new ones on here. I would imagine there's a lot of people just like buying a 994 Caterpillar massive wheel loader and then being like, I don't like this, but I'm going to trade it in for the next one. I imagine it probably doesn't work like that. But yeah, these are pretty steep. Like, oh, there's a 2015 for 3 million. Oh wow, that's a lot more expensive than what the other post said. That's wild, honestly. Like 60, could you imagine that? Like 64,000 a month? That's like that's crazy.
That's insane. You would literally have to run a multi-billion-dollar mine to probably be able to cover those kinds of expenses. This is just looking at this all, man. Like all of the excavators, all of the 797s that are running around this mine. This is insane. Like the kind of operations that happen in mines. But I wonder what it looks like at that rare earths mine that's out here in California. Let me remember where that is. I think it's on Interstate 15. Yeah, right here, Mountain Pass. Here it is. What do they have in this mine? So they also have the 797s. But what do they have to dig the stuff out?
Could you imagine what their insurance is for that mine? Like, that must be crazy. Like, I'm sure they probably have to have insurance on everything, you know, in case there's like a rock slide or something like that and equipment gets taken out. Could you imagine what it costs to insure, like, upwards of like more than $500,000 plus or $700 million in equipment? That's probably insane.
Man, you know, it's probably in the millions every year, or more, I would assume. Probably a lot more than that. Probably in the tens of millions every year. I mean, the amount of money, man, that's involved in this stuff is insane. Like, and look at this facility right here for the rare earths that's right next to the pits.
Yeah, that's crazy, honestly. Like, I don't think mining something you can just be like, hey, I want to get into mining and start a mining company. I don't think it works like that. The barrier to entry to mining seems huge.
Honestly, man, the barrier to entry to pretty much everything nowadays is massive. I mean, you got to have like millions of dollars and loads of expendable income and investors and a whole bunch of stuff to even just break soil to open up a mine nowadays. Like it's not like it used to be, you know, where you could literally just pick away at the ground and go sell whatever you're picking away at. Like it's a lot more invested these days for sure. And also, oh, look at this, man. This is the field maintenance office. So I guess this is where they repair all the vehicles, or at least look into them from time to time. Where in the world did they put the 797s, though? Is it in this giant... Yeah, it's in this giant shed, so they built a huge hangar here to bring these things to.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But with that, I hope we addressed that well, the best we possibly can. I mean, this is some crazy stuff right here. And I gotta thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Blind Man. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the live chat question goes to Levi Stratton, who said, "My question is to the both of you. Lavrov's absence sparks speculation he has fallen from favor with Putin. Is it hyperbole or is there some truth to it?" And I think there was some truth to it, actually. The Kremlin and the Russian government tried to deny it extremely much, I would say. So I would say just for the fact that they tried to deny it so badly, it likely does have some truth to it. And also, Lavrov was missing from a couple of very big events that he usually does attend right after the rumors started happening. So it sounds to me like Lavrov was the scapegoat for the reason the entire talks with the U.S. fell apart. And that would be typical Russian behavior. Putin usually does find a scapegoat. I'm a little surprised it was Lavrov because he's basically the right-hand man to Putin for a very long time and also a good friend of Putin. But you know how it is with Putin. He has no loyalty to anybody when it suits his needs. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, generally, it does appear that he had fallen out of favor for a little bit, but I think it wasn't anything permanent. I think it was just a minor falling out of favor for a small while because Putin was displeased, but he came right back in the fold because Putin's pretty much had no one else rather than Lavrov as the foreign minister the entire time he's been the dictator of Russia. So I hope that has addressed that live chat well, and a huge thanks to you so much once again for support, Blind Man, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, Marion, for that support. I think she already left for the night, but hopefully she hears us tomorrow. But thank you very much for that support. And Marion said, God would help us.
And God help us all. But still, a big thanks to you for the support, and it's crazy times to be living in these days for sure. I mean, this many wars happening in this many corners of the world, quite rare historically. I mean, y'all are truly living through historic times, that's for sure. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sika Games, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Sika, for that $20 support right there. And Sika said, for the Tinder accounts in Salt Lake, and he put in the hot dog and he put in the man emoji right there. Honestly, I'll tell you this, Sika. I'm not a Tinder person myself. That's not for me. I'm not gonna lie though. I did try it out for a short little while there, but I immediately saw. Okay, I'm like, I think Tinder is for something else, not for something I was looking for, to be perfectly honest. But I'm not so much of a Tinder guy, I guess you could say. I'm more of a kindling guy. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support. I don't think that'll be necessary though, but I do thank you so much for the support. And in case we do need it, it's right there. But I don't think we will. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to DeFlynn, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, before China invades, they will need to be able to secure the Kinmen and Matsu Islands first. And do you think there will be a similar 2014 Crimea incident in the lead up to the main invasion, or will they skip the islands entirely?
It's possible, but they don't necessarily have to take Kinmen County. They could bombard it from air and neutralize any military threats on the islands from the aerial bombardments alone, and then move on directly to the main island itself. There's a lot of ways that they could go about this where a naval landing of Taiwan would be successful while avoiding Kinmen and Pinggu County. So generally I would lean more towards they'll probably just try and skirt past those islands and then revisit them later, or try and go for a capitulation of the Taiwanese government, which would force those islands under Chinese control anyways without them even having to fight over them directly. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Arar983. And Arar puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that very generous support. He said, for the Korean Costco Bulgogi Bake Fund and LSA.
Nothing beats a bulgogi bake. But still, a huge thanks to you for the support. And I gotta say, that international Costco segment last night was wildly interesting. I did not know that Costco had international locations, and it was really cool to see what they had in the other stores. You know what's crazy, though, is that we went to Costco yesterday here, and even here in Salt Lake City, the selections for stuff in the Costco was very much different than the selections that we had in Alabama, which was really interesting. Like, they didn't have the same types of bread and stuff, and I was really interested in that. I was like, wow, this is cool. It's kind of like what we were just talking about, but it's actually here in real life. It's totally different. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you so much for the support and supporting that bulgogi bake fund, because one day we will try and cash in on that maybe. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Hoodoo 2001. It's also Hoodoo, Texas, and he puts in a $20 support. And Hoodoo said, the U.S. has important interests worldwide, but we need to deal with them with careful restraint. And the more aggressively that we muddle militarily in the world, the more a surprise disaster will hit us, like the unfortunate events back in 2001, with caution be bold.
And I would agree with you, Hoodoo, Texas. We do have to be very careful and strategic about our approaches globally. Otherwise, we can end up getting ourselves into situations that we could regret later in the future. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I definitely agree with you on that 100%. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Swazo. And thank you, Swazo, as well. They said, thank you, fellow veterans. And one from the chat, please. And LOT, LOSA.
And long live the Leah Spring Army. Now I got to give a huge thanks to those who have served and are currently serving, because y'all are heroes of the nation and heroes of the Republic. And so I got to say a huge thanks to y'all once again. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get one from the chat in your honor. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this one, the live chat question, is going to go to TS Actual, who said, is there any evidence of pre-shaping PSYOP missions other than the B-52 and B-1 flybys?
I haven't seen any at the moment, particularly myself. So I would say that, at least from what we understand, the other psychological operations are non-existent at this moment. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. So a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a question from, or actually a super chat from Robert Krogan. And Robert puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again. He said, good evening to you all, and happy Veterans Day, and thanks for your service.
And a happy Veterans Day to everyone here. And I also have to clarify that Enforcer Matt and me have never served, but we do thank you incredibly for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we'll pass that thanks along to everyone who has served in the armed forces of the Republic. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Thomas D'Orazio, and he puts in a 10. And he said, happy Remembrance Day. And he puts in the Canadian flag, and happy Veterans Day with the American flag. And thank you to all who served and have served for the sacrifices you make.
And thank you so much for the support. And I'd have to say a happy Remembrance Day to everyone out there in the Commonwealth and the UK, and a happy Armistice Day or a Veterans Day to everyone here in the United States, depending on which one you say. It's a wonderful thing to know that we have a nation where we can celebrate our veterans and currently serving members of the armed forces, because they are a large part of making sure that this nation stays defended, so that way the people here on the home front can turn the country into something that truly is to be admired. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to John Punk. I believe it's said. Hopefully I'm saying your last name properly. And he puts in a $10 support and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, John, for that generous $10 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And we also have a 10 from Decepticon IT Help Desk. And he said, hi, my fellow Starlight Slimes.
Hey, yo, what's up, Big Slime? Big
Slime. Hey, what's up, Slime?
Hey, what's up, Big Slime? Hey, man, shit. But still, big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta say, it's a great thing to have you here. I gotta thank you incredibly for the support. And folks like you, support this channel and help us to make this thing financially feasible. You help us to keep our lights on, to buy $5 Costco chickens. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here, because we wouldn't be able to buy that $5 Costco chicken. We'd be under a bridge. We'd be starving. We'd be cold. It's really cold out here. And we wouldn't have the time to focus on this show. And so I thank you. But I was building up to that. But beyond that, I thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. So a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to, and also by the way, were you trying to do a Tucker Charleston laugh?
Yeah, I was trying to do a Tucker laugh right there.
Oh, I was about to say it sounded familiar there, but it cut out on the mic a little bit. I was like, what was that? I was like, it sounded like a hyena laugh, like those Russians were doing, but it didn't quite come through. But our next one here,
Mr. Senator, could you hit us with a laugh like that?
who, me?
Yeah.
I could try. I'm trying not to get evicted though. Like I'm not sure how well the neighbors can hear me or not yet. I'm still trying to test it out. I'm trying to see if I get a noise complaint or not. So I don't know if I want to test the Tucker Charleston thing out yet. It's Carlson, right? Is it Charleston?
It's Tucker Carlson.
Oh, Carlson. Okay. People said Charleston so much as a joke. I've started like making that his real name at this point. But honestly, I'm gonna have to pass. I don't want to get evicted.
Well, could you at least hit us with an RFK? Just a little bit.
I mean, you got to really work up to it. I mean, you can't just like toss it on me, okay? It's like when you see somebody fainting, you're the health person. You say, "I'm out of here, buddy. Fainting. Get some water here. Get him some cold water. Tap water. You know, you got."
My fellow Americans.
What's
He's
he doing
tweaking
here?
out. Like he's tweaking. Basically, when you talk about foreign policy, you gotta hit him with a drone strike. Hit him with it, Joe. Look, you gotta understand. You gotta understand. When you talk about the Middle East, you gotta hit him. You gotta hit him hard.
Listen here. Here's the one right here that you don't have to work up to. They say, sir, you got to remember that there's a place and a time. There's a place and a time for everything, and you don't faint on the Oval Office floor. They said, sir, don't faint on that floor right there. That's hardwood mahogany. Don't mess it up. They said, get him off the floor. Get him my way. Drag him out if you have to. Anything's possible, you know. He doesn't want to lower those costs. He said, sir, do I have to lower the costs, sir? Do we hit it? Low price of Ozempic. They said, sir, like losing weight, sir, it's more important, sir. You got to have the lost weight. I'm telling you, they're losing weight naturally because the groceries are so expensive. But it doesn't matter, though. Here, have some Ozempic.
I got to be honest with you.
It slowly got progressively worse as I was doing that voice for some reason. It slowly started fading off until like it didn't even sound like him anymore.
I got to be honest with y'all. He was kind of losing it there at the end. People were going, sir, what's he doing? And I was like, I don't really know. I have no clue. But one thing I will tell y'all is that the Ozempic just got cheaper and thinner waists just got in vogue, everyone. You too can get some budget Zempic for $30 or $29.99. We all know it. We all love it. We call it My Ozempic. It's great. It's wonderful. It's incredible. A lot of people have been coming around and they've been going, wow, that's so great. My Ozempic. That sounds wonderful. And I've been saying, it's great. It's great. Look at me. I use it all of the time. Never been thinner. But one thing I got to say is that there's a lot of people out there who are going to be getting really thin and they're not doing it from Ozempic. It's going to be the Iranian people. They've run out of water. And when you run out of water, you get thin really quick. A lot of people say that's water weight, and that's not real in Iran anymore. They're not going to have water weight. Water weight's gone. And speaking of water weight, another big thing that we have to talk about is the Russians. The Russians, they always talk about that oil, and that has a little bit of water in it. Did you know that? Oil has a little bit of water in it. The water and the oil separate, but it's something that does exist.
Hold on a minute. That's something there. You be very careful about what you're saying about that because it's very controversial. It's something you have to watch for. You have to carefully curate what you're talking about here with that. What you really should be doing is make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure your cells have enough aqua. You gotta make sure about that. Make sure you have you ever heard of deer urine? I mean, it's something. It's a new theory. They say,
oh man,
hit the deer full speed ahead and have some.
Oh man, this guy right here, he's a great guy. He's like Joe Rogan. He's about to be telling us all about elk meat and how it makes you more aggressive or something. I don't really know. But you know, something else that we've got to talk about here. We got to talk about it is Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, great place. Lots of mountains. But you know, something I've noticed recently is when you drive around in the city, you look out and sometimes the mountains are really clear and other days they're not so clear. And I go, why are they not clear? And people have been calling me up. I call up my greatest generals and they go, sir, we can't get to the bottom of why the air is not clear around here. It turns into milk every once in a while. And I go, what the hell is this? Turn off the lights. And we turn them off and you can't see it anymore. But when the light comes on, when that giant beaming light in the sky comes on every day, you can see it every once in a while. They tell me that it's smog. They tell me that it's industrial grade smog, and I do not know why that's here. I say, get the smog out of here. But at the same time, we also have to drill, baby, drill. And I've heard that there is some timber around here, and so we're going to have to cut that down, and we're also going to have to open up oil wells in the middle of Salt Lake. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. People are going to be going, wow, it's never been better. I have not seen smog this thick in my life, and it's not milky colored anymore. It's black, and it's blotting out the sun, and we're all dying. But anyway, so beyond that, though, I'm just kidding around, folks. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep running. I hope you all got a kick out of that. But, of course, we will try and do some different voices throughout the course of the night because we do know that a lot of people always like to get a good laugh. Some people hate them. Some people love them. But we will make sure to do a couple of more throughout the course of the night so that way some folks can get some good laughs. But with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Game Team, who puts in a $10 support. And thank you very much, Game Team, for that $10 support right there. And they said, thank you for keeping us up to date.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and enjoying being kept up to date. We try our best, and I hope that we have a good deal of success with keeping people up to date on what's going on around the world. And I got to thank you for the kind words and the support, because folks like you help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Keith Sires, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Keith, as well. He said, is Putin a legitimate military target?
Technically, it's a yes and a no. Because generally you don't want to outright kill a national leader of an enemy nation, because then you lose the ability to negotiate with them, and you also lose the even if we don't consider them to be the legitimate head of the state, you lose the legitimate head of the state. And then also that opens up reciprocal attacks on our leaders, like, for example, Zelensky or the President of the United States from the Russians, and that's something that we generally want to avoid. At that level, you want to kind of keep it a little bit gentlemanly, but it doesn't stop us from trying to conduct those attacks in a covert way. Both on the Russians, on the President of the U.S., and from the U.S. on the Russians, and the Ukrainians on the Russians, and the Russians on the Ukrainians, and so on and so forth. That is never stopped. That's always an ongoing effort in the background. Because if you can never succeed in doing that, but it doesn't get tied directly back to your home country immediately, then that's a success. But if you ever did it directly, like if you hit, Putin with a missile and killed him, that generally wouldn't turn out too well in a million different ways. So a military target, not necessarily, but a target nonetheless. Yes, he is a target. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least from what I would know. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I see some people have finally just learned how old we are, and I have to say that it's a wonderful thing to know that so many people have been here with us. While I'm 37, I never thought we would make it here by 37, and I'm just kidding, folks. I'm actually 23, and Matthew's 25. So if you've been listening to this channel, allegedly, watch out, that could be, we could get some reciprocal action. But beyond that,
I'll sue.
Oh God! But beyond that, I'm 23, Matthew's 25. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, you've been getting your news from people in their mid-20s. So I hope that it's been high quality, because we put a lot of effort into this, and then a lot of people are like, no way, I thought they were in their 30s or their 40s. And we're honored to hear that. We really are. Because by the time that we're in our 40s, we're going to sound like we're in our 70s. We're going to be like, what's that, Sonny? What's that? You said they're Russian. What are they rushing to get to? Or something, maybe. But still, with that, I hope that does address that little side of things well. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Euro12, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Euro, for that support. They said the first active radar-guided missile was the Bat in World War II. And my father was a test pilot for the radar-guided Sparrow, which also preceded the Phoenix and LSA.
Wow, that's
Wait a minute,
really
at the
cool.
test pilot, that's a missile, isn't it, though? Isn't the Sparrow a missile?
Yeah, but you got to launch it from an aircraft.
Oh, okay, that's what I mean by test pilot. I was about to say, like, I was like, Shirley wasn't like riding the missile. Like, I was thrown for a loop by that one for a minute, but I got you now.
man, he was sitting there, imagine him riding a missile with a lasso, like going, yeah, man, like,
Oh man, I guess that is the right way to say it, though. I guess test pilot for the aircraft launching it. So yeah, that actually does work. I don't know why my mind jumped at that though. That's kind of odd. My mind works in a strange way.
his mind works in mysterious ways. But beyond that, that's really cool to hear, actually. Um, Actually, no one in my family really did anything like that. I was going to try and share a similar story, but I actually have no similar stories from my family, so that is actually really unique and cool. And I got to say, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and sharing such an interesting backstory about your family with us, because that is really neat. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And what's everybody talking about Doctor Strangelove? I don't really like know. I've heard of it, but I don't know the whole thing. Is there like a guy riding a missile in that?
So, Doctor Strangelove was this movie made by Stanley Kubrick, which is about. And here's the picture that they're referencing right here about the guy. This guy's riding a nuclear bomb down to the ground.
Now, Euro, is that your father?
No, no, that's not his father. It's kind of close though, but not really. But beyond that, this movie was about possible nuclear war going on. It was kind of like a comedy of it. It was like absurd, but it was pretty interesting. And they had a guy in the movie. He started off the whole nuclear war deal pretty much, but I forgot what they called him. It was like W.R. Monger or something like that. I forgot, but it was supposed to be like Warmonger or something along those lines, and I can't really remember the guy's name exactly. But it wasn't W.R. Monger deal, but it was an interesting movie. I've watched the entirety of it. Yeah, there's the guy right here. Oh, wait, it was Jack the Ripper. That was his name.
Yeah, I know somebody goes by that name.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. And that's probably the picture right there too, isn't it?
Possibly, maybe.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. And also, man, they had like the president. This was the president of the United States in the movie. He called up the premier of the Soviet Union, and he was doing like this silly thing on the phone. And he was like, "No, I thank you for your time." And then you hear, "No, I really thank you for your time." And it was like that stupid diplomatic stuff that they do. And it was honestly a hilarious movie. It was absurd, but it was hilarious. But what they're referencing though is this guy with the cowboy hat waving it around as he was riding the nuclear bomb down to the ground.
Interesting. He rode it all the way down?
Yeah, he rode it all the way down. He got vaporized in the nuclear explosion.
Oh wow, he's a real cowboy.
Man, but he was Southern, man. So he was in the plane. He's like, "All right, pull out the survival kit." They were like pulling out the survival. It was honestly, man, it was a good movie. You should watch it sometime. But once you get that movie, well, the TV set up and everything, you should watch this. But and also, by the way, folks, I don't even have a TV. Managed to get a TV. I don't even have a TV. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, when I walk into my place, it's an empty show.
He's got no TV. He got a TV. He said, I got no TV. I said, yeah, get a TV.
Oh man, I'm telling you. I said, oh man. Then I sat there and said, oh man, I have no TV. Oh man, my psychiatrist told me to just look in the mirror. I'm schizophrenic. I'll imagine everything anyways. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I was walking down the street the other day and I sat there and said, oh man, excuse me, I'm in your way. And they said, you're always going to be in my way, you fat ass. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, when I was growing up, my parents, they gave me no respect. Oh man, no respect, I tell you. When I was a kid, my toys in the bathtub were a radio and a toaster. Oh man, I can tell you that was a shocking experience. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, and it gets worse from here. Oh man, but we'll save that for another time. My doctor, Dr. Vinny von Bott, she told me to keep my blood pressure down. Oh man, so I can't get too worked up about this stuff. Oh man, I get no respect. The guy told me that I was too fat. Oh man. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one.
All right. So up next, a big shout out to Mark Dixon, who put in a 5, along with the Wisdom to Know, who also put in a 5, and Alien Necho, or Alien Echo, actually. Alien Echo. I want to say Alien Necho, but it's Alien Echo who put in a 5. And thank you all three very much for that support. The Wisdom to Know, Alien, and Mark for that support. We do appreciate that. And we also have a 5 from the Wolfman. And the Wolfman said, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the Western Front fell silent. The first truly global conflict had ended.
And you know that is true. And I got to thank you so much for the support. But you know something that's even crazier is that there's actually a scholarly debate that goes on in the history circle that World War I was not the first World War. And it's a really interesting one because I actually see where they're coming from with it. But they actually argue that World War I was the 7 Years' War. And that was actually quite interesting because it was a global war fought by numerous powers on multiple different continents. And a lot of people in America actually know about this war, but we call it the French and Indian War because we particularly fought in the colonies just against the French and Indians. We weren't involved in the rest of it elsewhere around the world. But it is quite interesting because just look at the belligerents. Look at the belligerents here. Look at this. Britain, Prussia, Portugal, and Russia versus France, the Holy Roman Empire, and Russia. Russia was playing everyone like they were playing both sides. Sweden, Bengal, in India, like they were involved in this. Like this was truly a global conflict. Here's all the participants around the world, and pretty much everywhere where these participants were, at least both sides, there was a battle that happened. So a lot of people actually argue that the 7 Years' War is actually the First World War, and that means that World War I is World War II, and that means that the Third World War had already happened in World War II. That was actually World War III by that metric. Still, it's not worth changing all the naming conventions over, but this was actually the first global war to have ever happened, and nobody even really thinks of it that way, and it happened in the middle of the 1700s. So really, honestly crazy when you think about that. The first technically global war happened in the 1700s. That is bizarre. But anyways,
Did you know? Hell, here's a trivia. This is a tricky question, so you have to think this one over before you answer. Because there's a answer that you might think is obvious, but it's really not the right answer. You know that all throughout history, there's been the war on certain animals, right? Like the Great Emu War. They had that. There's been like wars that countries have declared on specific types of animals. So you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
So, what is the most recent war that any country has declared on animals? What is the most recent one, and which country was it?
I think it would be the United States with the war on the mosquitoes in Florida that were transmitting the Zika virus.
Nope. It's not there. It's try again. Try again.
Oh, it's the war that the United States fought against the screw fly.
Well, what?
You don't know about that?
A screw fly? What the hell is that?
It's a carnivorous fly that eats cows.
I hadn't heard about that, but that's not the one I'm talking about, though. Be pulling up that screw fly, though, while I'm saying the answer here. But there, actually, a couple people are saying it right there. Some people are saying the Japanese and the bears. That is the latest one, by the way. The Japanese declared war on the bears. That is the most recent war on animals that any country's actually done in a long, long time. There was the war on emus. I believe that was in Australia, where they took the emus out. Or I really can't remember if Australia even won that war. I'm not sure if the emus won it or the Australians won it, to be honest. But yeah, the bears right now are under attack by the Japanese because the bears are attacking people so much. The Japanese are trying to take them down, but they don't let the Japanese troops use any weapons like guns or anything like that. They make them use these massive bear traps that they have to haul around and clamp the bears down like you see in cartoons and stuff like that. They put these huge bear traps down and they got to trap them and somehow take the bears away because they're not allowed to shoot the bears, crazily enough.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. You know, we even talked about that last week, and I didn't even know that was the current war going on against an animal. But you asked about the screw fly, Matthew, and I deliver. Here is the New World screw fly.
And why do they call it that? I'm curious.
Well, they call it that because it gets its freak on cows. It eats them, and it causes a lot of monetary damage as a result of that. You know what, folks? Let me hit you all with a voice that you haven't heard in a while, but a lot of people appreciate. This is the New World screw fly.
The New World screw fly is a carnivorous fly that consumes living cattle wherever they roam. It has become the ire and problem of the entirety of the northern hemisphere of the Americas, and the United States of America spent exorbitant amounts of money, along with Mexico and other Central American states, to destroy the New World screw fly. The United States began a campaign and eradicated the entirety of the screw fly population within the southern parts of the United States and the entirety of the Central Americas. Gone are the days that a fly would fly up onto a cow and start lathering it in baby oil. This screwworm fly is now specifically prohibited to the area of the Panama Canal and everywhere south of that down towards Argentina.
But generally, to explain this to you.
Oh, go ahead. I thought I got some information about the Emu War, by the way. That was fascinating. I didn't know about.
Go ahead.
Also, by the way, not interrupt the screw fly thing, but Australia. Did you know that Australia actually lost the Emu War? Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, the emus outmaneuvered the soldiers. I didn't even know that. Like, I thought they had won the Emu War. Let's see here. The military campaign launched by Australia against the emus intended to cull a large emu population that was destroying the crops. But the speed and resilience of the emus allowed the emus to flank the Australians, and the emus actually won the war. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, but what's interesting about that is that if you hear the real story, it's even crazier because every single time they were about to light up those emu flocks with a machine gun, the machine gun would jam about 2 rounds in, and so they would only kill like one emu, wound another, and then they'd all go running off out of view of the army, and then they couldn't get them. And because the Outback has so many gopher holes and stuff, it was next to impossible to maneuver vehicles through there, from what I understand, if the story is correct. And so they weren't ever able to really catch up to the emus once they ran away. They just disappear, and they'd have to wait for them to show up again.
That's insane. The Australian government actually declared, actually withdrew and conceded defeat in December of 1932. So they actually conceded defeat to the animals. That's wild. They marked the end of the operation with the emus marked as the victors.
Yeah, and so what they did after that is that they just gave a whole bunch of guns to the Australian farmers and then told them to go kill them. And then the farmers ended up killing a large amount of them after that. But that was the original plan. The original plan was just give guns to the farmers and let them go around shooting these things. And then they said, oh, well, we got a better idea. Because we don't trust the farmers with guns, what if we just send the army out there? And then the army was literally beaten by them pretty much. So then they gave up and then gave the guns to the farmers anyways. And then the farmers ended up killing a large number of them.
That's crazy, honestly. I've never really heard that they were really taking that seriously. I've never heard of a group of animals flanking a military. Like, that's kind of wild. What the hell does an emu even really look like? Let's see here. Oh wow, there's a guy holding one by the neck. Those things actually like go in big packs. Like, that's kind of sketchy. I didn't even know they were in packs like that. They're showing like pictures of like huge flocks of these things, big flocks. I can see why they might be dangerous. Are these things deadly or something? Like, what's their capability? Let's see here. Emu.
They eat crops in mass. Like they're like locusts nearly with how they can eat crops. And that was the problem, is that they were destroying harvests for farmers in the droves because the herds would show up and just eat everything, and there was really no way for the farmers to fight them.
Yeah, it says emus can be dangerous to humans as they are capable of inflicting serious injury with their powerful legs and sharp claws, especially when they feel threatened or protecting the young. So they've got some really powerful kicks, apparently, and their claws are sharp as razors. So that's interesting. It sounds like a dangerous creature right there. It says, do not approach the emu. Avoid approaching the emu, especially if it's displaying aggressive signs like puffing feathers or making hissing sounds. These things sound like they're actually kind of dangerous, actually. Someone said they are aggressive. Interesting. Let's see. They even call them killer birds. They say they're less aggressive, but they're still considered killer bird. That's kind of interesting, too. That's just wild. It says they're not poisonous either. Who the hell thought they were poisonous?
I mean, man, who in the world said, I think that thing's poisonous? But
man, +5 poison damage, in integrity on this animal right here. That's something. But honestly, they sound like they're actually kind of dangerous. I don't know if they charge. Like, did they ever charge the military? Because if they were flanking the military, did they actually launch an offensive?
No, they usually run away. The gunfire would scare them.
Oh, wow. And these things go in big herds, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, huge ones, hundreds of them at a time. Like it was like bison herds nearly. But also to get back to the screwworm, you want to know why the screwworm is an issue? I'll tell you why. New World screwworm flies are obligate parasites, as their larvae require living tissue for food. This lifestyle distinguishes them from other members of the genus, whose larvae primarily feed on necrotic tissue of dead animals or excrement. These flies actually lay their eggs within open wounds from dehorning or castration. So, or any other open wound for that matter. So these are the little larvae, and they'll lay hundreds of these in an open wound on a cow, and these larvae will just start eating through a living cow. So they cause hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, or at least they did back in the day here in America. So back in the 50s, we started this giant project, like this huge project, at trying to kill them all, and we actually ended up succeeding. But the problem is that we never could get all the South American countries together to join us in funding the eradication of the screwworm. So we were able to eradicate all of them in the southeast and throughout the southwest of the United States and all the way through Central America. And we decided on the Panama Canal being the stopping point because it was a very narrow tract of land, and these flies can't fly far out to sea, and travel on up to America that way. They have to travel up through land. So every single week, some U.S. Air Force aircraft go flying over that area of Panama, and we drop hundreds of thousands of sterile screwworms in that area, so that way the non-sterile screwworms will attempt to breed with them, and they won't produce any offspring, and they're all killed off, and they never travel north again. And we do that every single week. It costs us, I think, a couple of $1 million a week. It's like $3 to $5 million, but because of that expense, we are saving hundreds of millions of dollars in lost cattle.
Wow, that's something else right there. Also, by the way, I was doing some more research on the emu on my side of things over here. Did you know that apparently do you know what the most dangerous bird in the world actually is? Have you heard of it?
Oh, I probably haven't. What is the most dangerous bird?
It's the cassowaries. It's the only animal that Steve Irwin, who was known of not being afraid of animals, it was the only animal that he was scared of. It's this, yeah, it's that bird right there, a cassowary. And also, thanks to the people in the chat for telling me about this. I did not know about this animal until today, but this thing is deadly. The claws are very sharp, and it can apparently kill someone in an instant if this thing decides to attack because of how sharp and fast this thing is. So. If Steve Irwin was afraid of it, then that tells you a lot. That guy wasn't scared of anything. In fact, his lack of fear of animals is eventually what cost him his life. And he was apparently the only animal he steered clear of was the cassowary. So that's fascinating. Also, I've seen a video of this thing before honking and stuff like that. Like in a video, like these things are actually kind of like scary. Like actually, just from a normal standpoint, these things are kind of scary. But it looks like they are very, very deadly though. Like they get a hold of you, you're finished.
Man, speeding has killed cassowaries. Honestly, is that even like a downside? That sounds like a positive if these things are that dangerous. I mean, like
it says right here, what to do if a cassowary approaches you. It said remain calm, face the cassowary, do not turn your back. Slowly back away from the cassowary. Try to put an object like a tree, your backpack, or furniture between yourself and the bird, and clutch the Glock.
Man,
I added the clutch the Glock part. By the way, it doesn't say that.
Dude, when faced with a cassowary, the survival instruction is you'd rather be judged by 6 than carried by 12, apparently. Man, honestly, that's crazy. But you know what's crazy is that this says here that the common ostrich still kills more people than the cassowary. But also, they're apparently not that deadly because the ostrich only kills about 3 people a year. So if the ostrich is killing 3 people a year, and that's the most dangerous bird out there, then the cassowary, is probably only killing 1 person a year. You'd have to be kind of unlucky to get killed by one.
Yeah, honestly, I don't like these birds. I don't like these dangerous ones right here. These are not my type.
I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird. Man, this thing is the biggest bird. Like, oh, wait a minute. You know something that's quite peculiar? I always thought that ostriches were also in Australia, but apparently they're only in Africa.
Huh, that's weird.
Yeah, I always thought they were from Australia, I literally thought that until tonight when I saw that map, and I was like, what? Oh, look at the chick. That thing looks like a tumbleweed, honestly.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like that's one of the very few like baby animals I don't really care for.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. These birds.
These are
here,
ugly animals. I don't like these.
These are. This one's in Finland.
Huh.
Huh.
Finlandia. That's a favorite alcohol of some, Russian politicians.
You're right. Actually, like you're right. Dude, this guy used one for a carriage in Jacksonville, Florida. Bro, Florida people have been wilding since 100 years ago.
And the Florida man was making the rounds back in 1911. Also, what the hell is it? Like, this buggy he's sitting on right here literally has like a paddle for a seat. It's just a pipe. It's like a pipe wagon.
Man, they had to make it lightweight so this thing could carry it. Man, this is crazy. Bro, they put a freaking bridle in this thing's mouth like its beak is opened up like all the way. He's like, yeah, boy. Like it's... Bro, Florida people have been crazy forever. Like, no joke. This is the craziest thing, because this thing could kick you and kill you, Well, I guess a horse could too, but it seems crazier to do with an ostrich, I just feel like they're prone to violence, like they crave it.
Yeah, the rumor is this guy right here, he got this ostrich to take him right down to the swamp. He took Shawty to the swamp and he wrestled the gators out on the weekend. That's the rumor right here.
Man.
This honestly though, the Florida man was kind of styling. I mean, he had the little hat on, he had the little suit on and stuff like that. I mean, he was at least riding out in style with his ostrich-born carriage.
Man, he said, I took my ostrich on the way down to Miami, bodying for my girl. Went to the liquor store, bought me a kubi. Man, like he said that, man. Like, honestly, that is crazy. I cannot believe that right there. Anyways, folks, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. Matthew, how many do we have left, by the way?
I have about 12 left.
Oh, that's not too bad. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ace Pilot, who puts in a 5. He said it's too late for them to study the tactics used in Vietnam for Venezuela, since drones and thermals are a thing now, and tunnels and jungle canopy cover are less viable.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree. The Vietnam-era tactics are not going to work too well for them. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Measure Man, and he said, friends better than enemies, and thoughts about the UK Intel Share News and LSA. Honestly, like Measure Man, I gotta tell you, that was interesting. The UK actually stopped sharing intelligence. Now, I will say this, though. We don't really need the UK's intelligence sharing. Like, it's not really something like a necessity for the United States, because the United States has some of the best intel gathering capabilities on the planet, just ourselves alone. So they don't need it, but it's the symbolism behind it. The UK was actually willing to take a step like that because they really don't agree with the Venezuela situation at all, apparently. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I would agree with Enforcer Matt on that. That would pretty much be my 2 cents on it as well. But a big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Piscator Outdoors, who puts in a 5. And he said, I love the show, and my wife and I watch y'all every night. And what do you guys think of the B-58 Hustler? And what are your favorite early Cold War aircraft?
The B-58, that is a really cool one, actually. Here it is.
That is pretty cool. I actually kind of like that.
Yeah, it's like a Delta Dart, but it was a bomber. And it was a really unique design. Actually, that's a really cool one. And I gotta say, thank you for the high praise of saying that you and your wife watch the show every night. Very honored by that. I would say that my favorite early Cold War aircraft, if we're speaking about just internationally, it probably would be the Avro Arrow. The Avro Arrow was a really cool aircraft. It never really made it out of the prototype phase, but it was a Delta Wing aircraft, and it was insanely fast. I mean, this thing was an amazing interceptor. It got canceled in the prototype phase because the U.S. decided to buy the F-101 Voodoo from the U.S. and the F-104, so this thing never made it out of the prototype phase, but it was a really cool aircraft with a really cool concept and was basically a flying rocket ship is the best way to explain it. It could get up to Mach 2 pretty easy. So, Matthew, what would be your favorite early Cold War aircraft?
That's a tricky one. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of, in fact, the Cold War is one of the best periods of aviation for development, in my opinion, that the U.S. has probably seen in a very long time. So most of our good stuff came out of that. Honestly, if I had to pick a top 3, then I'll pick a top 1. I would say the bottom 3 would probably be Well, I'll just list them from top to bottom. I'll say the SR-71, also the U-2 and the B-2. Those are probably my top three out of the Cold War. But the best one, honestly, I'd say for the best one, I would say I would go with the U-2 actually, just because we still use the U-2 today, which is hard for a lot of people to believe, because that was developed, I think, way back in, I think it was like around the 1950s or 60s. Say what now?
The 50s.
Yeah, the 50s. So yeah, it was around the 50s. And it's been in service since the 50s until now in 2025. We literally used the U-2 to spy on the China balloon that flew over the United States. That's how we took the pictures of it, was from a Lockheed U-2. So that shows you how significant that airframe has been for that long. And just because it's survived that long, I would say it's extremely impressive. And that's my number one pick, just for that reason, because we literally still use it. And also it flies at the edge of space too, which is also extremely impressive. But I will say though, it's a close call between the SR-71, because the SR-71 was extremely cool, extremely ahead of its time, but we also retired it very early, considering the U-2 still being in service. But I would say the U-2, top pick.
Interesting. And so with that, we hope we addressed that well. And also Santa Fe Railroad said, what about a train? If we're going with early Cold War, there's nothing that beats an F unit. Like everyone knows that. The F unit was the best looking thing ever made. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know who the top U-2 person is?
Who?
Bono.
Who's that?
Pull him up.
How do you spell that?
Bono.
I don't trust that. Irish songwriter and activist?
Yeah, let's show a picture of him.
This guy?
Yeah, you see read the title down there. You see the title?
Oh
my God, man! It took you that long to get it. That's crazy.
Get
That's
the hell out of
work.
here. Get the hell out of it. Yeah, he's like, man, that was so silly, man. Like, it's like that was. I couldn't even see that one. I couldn't even
That's
see
crazy,
that one coming
man.
around the corner.
I thought you were joking with me or something when you were like pretending not to get out there. You were like playing around or something. I thought you about to hit me with a zinger. I didn't know you actually didn't know who that was.
Man, I didn't know who that was, man. You know I live under a rock. I don't know who anyone is in the modern day at all. Like, at all, man, at all. But anyways, for that, we were on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Bennett Martinez, who puts in a 5. He said, do y'all think we'll see the Russian collapse before GTA 6? And also, do you think it should be canon in the game?
You know, I think we probably will, because they're going to push GTA 6 back to be released in 2030, I'm sure. So yeah, I think we'll see the Russian Federation collapse before GTA 6. We'll see the Russia collapse a second time before GTA 6 comes out, probably, I would assume. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mike Subsinski, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Mike, as well, for that support. And also a big shout out to Plazoth for putting in a 3, and Art Ghost for putting in a 2. And we appreciate all three of you, Plazoth, Art, and Mike, for that support. And we also have a 5 from Measureman, who said, I'm blue, dabba dee ba da da. Enjoy the music in your head.
If I was blue, if I was green, I would die. Man, I know that one. I know that. Don't you know that one, Matthew?
What was he, like asphyxiating or something? Why was he turning blue, and why did he believe he was going to die?
I don't know, but it's a song. Don't you know the song?
I mean, I think I've heard it on the memes.
Man, I've heard it on the memes too. That thing is legendary, really. But a big thanks to you for the support, throwing that in and reminding us of such a nostalgic time. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Miss Paula Thomas, who puts in a 5 and said, Russia has advanced about as fast as a drunk gnat with heavy shopping.
You know?
I've never heard Russia described as that.
I never heard it described as that either, but honestly, you're right. You're actually right. But a big thanks to you for the support, and I'd have to agree with you. They're moving quite slowly. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one also goes to Bennett Martinez, and he put in a 2 and said, we got Russia falling from grace before GTA 6. Honestly, Bennett, I think GTA 6 is going to keep getting pushed back, because actually the enforcer was actually right the other day. They hadn't updated it yet when he said it, but then later they said they were pushing GTA 6 like back to November or something. So they actually did push it back again, which I didn't know about until yesterday. So I don't know what's up with that game, taking way too long for that. So we might have, everything might happen before it comes out, honestly. World War III, aliens showing up, Area 51 gets opened as a supermarket, everything might happen. But enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to be honest with y'all. I know that a lot of people say don't rush art, and I completely agree. But GTA 6 has been in the works and about to be released for the last 5 years. I'm not buying GTA 6 when it comes out. I'm just going to be honest with y'all straight up because I don't like the whole fake breaking that they're doing with, oh, it's about to come out. Oh, actually, we're postponing it again. They know how long it's going to take to put the game out. Why do they keep on putting up the release dates like it's about to just come out to keep hyping it up and keep it hyped up forever? Like, for that reason alone, I don't respect that. I'm not buying the game. That's my personal 2 cents on it. If they wanted to release it at a time like, late 2026, just say that. Just say that. That's fine. Like, I would be fine with that. We know when it's coming out. But saying every single year, oh, it's coming out in late 2024. Psych, it's coming out in March of 2025. Oh, no, it's going to be November of 2025. No, it's going to be the spring of 2026. It's like, I don't like that. That is a lame way of doing hype. I don't respect it.
There's real reasons for him pushing it back, by the way. It's a whole controversy right now. There's there's allegations. I don't even know the whole story, to be honest. I'm not going to try to pretend like I know the whole story, but there's like a thing where I think someone got fired or something. They fired some game developers or something, and I think they're rehiring them or something. I don't know the whole story. Like, I may be wrong on that, but there's some real reason they actually had to push it back. At least that's the rumor. So it's probably a real reason. I really doubt they'd want to push it back anymore, to be honest, because I think they know they're testing people's patience with that. So it's probably not just them choosing to do it.
Yeah, maybe, but still, like the whole hype train thing that they've been going on for years, whether it's intentional or not, it's gotten annoying to me, and I wouldn't buy it off of principle at this point. That's just my personal 2 cents on it. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Yaller Ben, who put in a 2. He said they've no chance against a poor Middle East country.
Honestly, Venezuela.
Who's
they? That's Venezuela. I remember when they put that in, we were talking about Venezuela. I would agree with you. Venezuela is screwed, like, royally. There's nothing that could ever help Venezuela. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Esteban Graves, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Esteban, as well, for that support, and we do appreciate it. And we also have a 2 from MMI15, who said, any opinion on Lavrov and greetings from Latvia, LSA?
I'm not a big fan of the guy at this point at all. His foreign policy points and his arguments make no sense at all, and also I just don't really like the way he looks. He's got a funny looking face. I don't mean to say that like offensively, but that's just true for him. But beyond that, a big thanks to you for support and a big hello all the way up there to Finland. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than Bennett Martinez yet again, who put in a 2. He said, baseball, huh?
Baseball, huh? Baseball. I actually don't know a lot about baseball, to be entirely honest. I know that Japan loves baseball, and I know that baseball has kind of started to fade away here in America, at least generally, but generally I don't know a lot about the baseball. But a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And folks, it is now time for our live chat questions and our Morse code decoders of the night. And once again, a huge shout out to everybody for helping to keep the channel running through those super chat supports, and we do sincerely appreciate it. And it's now time to see what the folks in the live chat were saying. But first, we have our Morse code decoders. Tonight we have Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabella Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Copiarteric Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse says Russia's time as a functioning economy is starting to run very thin right now, and LT LSA.
And that's the sound of money. You got that dead on the nail. That was the jackpot. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly for getting that Morse code message correct. The least experienced Signal Corps is always getting that correct time and time again. And it's always a truly incredible and profound thing that y'all get that right so many times. So, a big congrats to y'all. A huge one, as a matter of fact. And once again, a huge shout out to Lee Springer Signal Corps. And so with that, it's time for us to move on into the live chat questions, folks. And considering that we are going overtime, effective right now, we're going to be getting 3 live chat questions. And then we're going to be rounding this thing on out for the night. And so with that, we're on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this live chat question goes to Avari Mendebratis. He said, how is the blast of the suspected Flamingo hit inside of Russia comparable to a Tomahawk's yield?
It's twice the size, actually, like quite literally exactly twice the size. A Tomahawk carries a 1,000-pound warhead. A Flamingo can carry a 2,000-pound warhead. So twice the difference in size. So I hope that does address that the best that I can. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And we have a question from the Wolfman, and he said, what is your thoughts about possible outside interference sparking the new conflict between India and Pakistan, and do you think someone is sparking it on? Honestly, the Wolfman, I thought that originally today when I saw it, because we saw one day prior, which was yesterday, we saw that Delhi was attacked, and there was a very similar terror attack in Delhi. And then this morning, we saw that Pakistan had a similar attack right in Islamabad, which is the capital. So my initial thought was, this seems almost too interesting to be true, too coincidental to be true, in other words. And I was wondering, is this some type of concerted effort by someone who has an interest in Pakistan and India going to war once again to get this thing kicked back off? Because it seems like it's very coordinated, at least from what I'm seeing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it probably isn't, because it always looks like when people aren't having a microscopic lens on something that it looks like things are related. But the fact of the matter is that there is endless, and I mean truly endless amounts of terrorist attacks that happen in Pakistan and India endlessly. All the time, as a matter of fact. There are endless attacks that happen in New Delhi, on the Indian railways, in southern India, and across Pakistan, especially because of the Balochistan independence movement in Balochistan in southern Pakistan. So while it looks like the two may be done by an outside power, the reality is that this is going on all the time, and it's just opportune that these two attacks happened in one in New Delhi, one in Islamabad, and they captured the attention of the Indian and Pakistani government. So I would say more so coincidental than deliberate and by design, at least in my opinion. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is going to be none other than Space Cat. And they said, if Belarus launches a Russian nuke at someone, is NATO then going to nuke Belarus, or are they going to nuke Russia in response to that?
We would nuke the Belarusians. Whoever fires the nuke is responsible for it, so if they try and nuke us, we nuke them back immediately. The Russians wouldn't get nuked on Belarus's behalf. Belarus would be nuked directly for firing off that nuclear weapon. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and... Wow, that was a voice crack. I got to thank...
I thought it was intentional.
But beyond that, I got to thank each and every single one of y'all for watching tonight. On behalf of both of us here on the Enforcer team, we thank you all for being here. We had a peak viewership tonight of 14.2 thousand people. That's a lot of people. And on top of that, 103,000 people have watched this stream before it even ended tonight. Now, that is a lot of people. And to that, we are greatly honored for having you all here, and we hope you all have enjoyed the channel greatly. And we hope that you all have really found your place here on YouTube and really on the internet here in the LSA. Of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And if there is enough news to make a short war video in the middle of the day tomorrow, I, the Enforcer, will be the one making that short war video. And so with that, folks, we will see you all either in the short war video tomorrow or in the live stream at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And so with that, folks, we thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And a huge shout out to all 102,000 people that were here by the end of the stream. And we hope to see you all tomorrow on the next stream at 10 p.m. Eastern, and also the midday short war video as well, if there is enough news to cover. But once again, a huge shout out to everybody for being here once again tonight. And also smack the like on your way out. And we will see you, of course, tomorrow. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Slava, get some rest, and good night.